Ladies and gentlemen, if you could begin to start taking your seats, the show will begin shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show will begin shortly.
my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
Thank you for making the nation proud, and may God bless America.
Look what happened.
America missed me.
Yeah. Hey, would you stand with me and remain standing? We're going to pray, and after the prayer, we'll have a pledge of allegiance. Pray with me. God in heaven, we pray to you as the only and ultimate authority. You're the creator and the savior. You created all things, and you left heaven and came here to rescue us from ourself and our sin and our separation from you. And you put all things into order. You created all things, and you redeem all things. And your scripture tells us that you set up and depose kings to put order in place. And so, God, we pray to you as the ultimate authority, and we put our hope in no human, no institution, no organization. You are our hope. But we ask you here in this time and in this place, in this season, to set up the person in place who will help us follow you, obey you, and put things in order as they should be. You set up and you depose kings, your scripture says. So would you set up people in place that'll put things in order in a way that would honor you? And would you depose people, remove them from a place where they would cause chaos and disorder? God, you're the one that we worship. And I pray that somehow tonight and tomorrow that you would use this moment to draw our hearts to you, give us wisdom and clarity, and move us to be a worshiper of you and a great citizen of this land that you've allowed us to live in. And we praise you for all the gifts you've given us, but especially your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. And it's in his name that we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Wasn't that a beautiful prayer? Well, welcome, Texas Youth Patriots and supporters. My name is Dr. Shelley Sekula Gibbs, and I'm proud to follow Pastor Jason Shepard to welcome you to the Woodlands, Texas, and to Montgomery County. Please join me in the first pledge, the pledge to our beautiful country, the United States of America. Hand over heart. Gentlemen, hats off. The flag will be... Here we go. That's the Texas flag. Here we go. To the right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. God bless you all. And now we'll have Kenneth Amori to lead us in the beautiful Star-Spangled Banner. Kenneth.
I'm here with my friend Christian Collins.
Christian Collins.
Christian, welcome back.
My name is Christian Collins. I'm the founder of the Texas Youth Summit.
And I think it's amazing what Christian and his team is doing.
I'm so excited to see what Christian's doing with Texas Youth Summit.
You know, my mission in life is to encourage people to realize their God-given potential so that they use their gifts, their talents, and their resources for His glory. You know, through these summits, I'm inspiring a next generation, even if they don't work directly in politics, but they're engaged citizens that understand and pay attention to the news, that vote, that care about their country, that celebrate America. That's the goal.
Howdy. Howdy. You know I'm a Longhorn, but I still like saying howdy. How many Aggies we got here? All right. How many Houston Cougars we got here? A couple, all right. How many Longhorns we got here? What do Aggies say usually when we talk about the Longhorns? What do you guys do? It's so funny. That cracks me up. Yeah, we got some Rice people here. Anybody Rice Owls? A few, okay, all right. What about some Sam Houston State University Bearcats? All right. We got some good groups here. Thank you, guys. We got some college students. We got some high school students. We got a lot of great people. If you were homeschooled, would you let us know? Would you respond and let us know if you were homeschooled? That's a big group. That's a lot of homeschool folks. If you were in public school, how many of you out there are there? Okay, a little underwhelming, all right. Okay. All right, if you go to private Christian school, how many we got here? A couple? Okay. Well, you guys excited for tonight? We got a great lineup for you. We got Chaya Raychick. If you don't know her yet, you should. She's the head of Libs of TikTok. You familiar? Honored to have her, and she's going to speak in just a second. We also have Yamini Park. She talks about communism. She defected from North Korea. Amazing story. Truly an amazing story. We also got Senator Brandon Creighton. He's a local guy. A lot of people say he's going to be our next lieutenant governor. Dan Patrick says that, so that's pretty neat. We got him here. We got Kimberly Guilfoyle. We got Donald Trump Jr. And you know, we got a really special guy later on, Corey Mills. He's a congressman, and he rescues people all over the world. And when the tragic situation happened on October 7th, this guy went and rescued people in Israel, rescued Americans. He's a true American hero. He's a military veteran, American hero. We have a truly awesome lineup for you tonight. And so I just wanted to give you a little overview of what that will look like. It's going to be fantastic. And I also want to introduce myself to those of you that don't know me. My name is Christian Collins, and I'm the founder and president of what we know as Texas Youth Summit. It's going to be a great event tonight, and we're excited to have a lot of our streaming partners streaming this event. And we have a partnership, especially with Fox Nation, and they're going to be streaming it tonight, and they're going to do a great job. We're thankful for them. And so give it up for Fox. I'm sure I'm going to thank a lot of people later on to just recognize people for putting on this event. We have a Texas Youth Summit organizing team. We have our board members. We have donors and sponsors who have made this event possible. We have volunteers. And so I want to give a larger, longer conversation about just how thankful I am later. But thank you to everyone who helped us put on this incredible event. Thank you so much. As mentioned, I'm the president and founder of the Texas Youth Summit. And we started this with an effort to educate young people in American civics, limited government, fiscal responsibility, the understanding of the Constitution, Judeo-Christian values that this country was founded on, that has made America great. That's why we're doing this, is to instill conservative and Christian values so that you have the right worldview, you as young people, so that when you go off to college or even when you're in high school, your house is built on the sand, not on the sand, but on the firm foundation. You're built on the rock. And let me tell you, there's no more important thing in your life than that you have a good, right-standing relationship with Jesus Christ. Those Judeo-Christian values. And we want you to have the right values so that you have God's favor on your life. There is no more important thing for whatever you want to accomplish. You can build your resume for years. You can do so many different things to push yourself to the front and get in front of the right people. You can be an expert in networking. But when you have God's favor on your life, that's like the wind behind your sails. That changes everything. There's nothing more important than knowing Jesus Christ, being in right relationship with Him. That means avoiding sin, and we are saved by grace because of what Jesus Christ did on the cross. So accepting Jesus and entering a right relationship with Him, there's nothing more important. And having God's favor on your life will put you in front of people you never could have imagined. You'll meet so many people. You'll be connected to more people if you have God's favor than you could ever do by yourself. Whatever you want to do, you need God on your side. You need to be on God's side, most importantly, and you need to be obedient to God and accept what He's done for you. And let me just say that I grew up in a minister's home. My dad was a pastor. And in college, I strayed. I didn't live for God. And I even called myself agnostic. And there also was a time, naturally, I just loved the idea of having a black president. And so I was going to vote for Barack Obama. Okay. Yeah. But thankfully, my dad turned me on to the great Rush Limbaugh. That got me straight. And you know what? I was now a proud conservative. I was at the University of Texas debating for college Republicans, but I still called myself agnostic. And it was only until I went through this transition, someone gave me Lee Strobel's book, A Case for Christ. And that book, the apologetics for why the gospel is true, it all hinges on whether the resurrection really happened. And there's corroborating evidence that showed me that this is very and possible, not only possible, but very likely. But it was going to church and having an experience with God that changed my life. That first experience, reading the book, affected my mind. This other experience affected my heart. And so I gave my life to Christ. And there was the season that I was so engrossed in ministry, didn't care about politics. I'd majored in government. And talking with my dad, he said, you know, you've given yourself to politics. And I was, at the time, thinking about giving it all up and going full-blown into ministry, going to seminary. Nothing wrong with that. But he said, you know, you've given yourself to politics. Maybe just give it a little bit more time. And so I majored in I majored in government. I went to grad school and got a communication degree. And I did my master's thesis, and I came home, and I got involved with campaign work, and I found myself eventually working with Ted Cruz and traveling with a man named Reverend Rafael Cruz, Ted Cruz's father. He's here on the front row. Give it up for Rafael Cruz. Rafael is one of my closest friends in life. Rafael, thank you for your mentorship and leadership in my life. I can't thank you enough for who you are. Rafael, getting to travel with Rafael, if you spend hundreds, if not thousands of hours with someone, it's hard for their spirit not to get on you, you know? And so even though I was working in politics, I still felt drawn to ministry. And it was traveling with Rafael as he was speaking to all these churches, and I'd help him do that, which helped me see that politics can be a ministry. It can be a ministry. And whatever you do, whatever it is you do in life, if you're an engineer or you're a police officer, if you're a teacher, whatever it is you do, if you do it under the glory of God, if you do it to share Jesus with other people, if you do it to make a difference, you can be a minister too. And that's what I gave my heart to. And so I did politics with a different lens. And so then I got, just really fired up. I was simultaneously, while I was working in politics, I was teaching at a college and doing college ministry. And so I was the advisor for a club. And my sister was the president of the club. It's kind of like Young Life, or Campus Crusade for Christ. She actually met her husband that way, which is pretty neat. And so I was doing college ministry. That was kind of my one hat. I was doing politics, working on campaigns. And then, I was doing education, teaching at the local college. And those three things were just separate for a while. But this beautiful thing that we are doing together, the Texas Youth Summit, it came together, a combination of politics, education, and ministry. And we're so blessed to get to do Texas Youth Summit. And we're doing this. People always ask, why do all these speakers come? And it's because of you guys. It's the young people in this room. If you are a young person, let's hear it from you. They're coming because they want to meet you. They're coming because you as a young person, did you know how much influence you have? You have incredible influence. You're at a season of your life where people want to help you simply because you're young. You may think, I don't have enough connections, enough money, enough this or that, but there's so many people who want to invest in you and pour into you because of simply where you are in life. And so my encouragement to young people is to do what I did with Raphael. Find someone and serve them. Serve them. I mean, in an age where so many people are content creators and making tons of money on TikTok, right? Making tons of money, it can be easy to see yourself like as an idol, but there's something so humbling about serving someone else and serving their vision. And I'm so impressed with the Cruz family, and that season of life for me was definitely transformative. And so my encouragement to you is find something to serve. Find someone to serve. Serve your community. Serve your country. Make a difference. And let me talk about this election real quick. Did you know we have in the United States of America, Gen Z, 41 million eligible voters? 41 million eligible voters. That's incredible. You guys can make the difference in this upcoming election. So I want to encourage you. We have voter registration booths out front. When you get the chance, go register to vote. If you're a young person, go register to vote and take 10 of your friends with you. I want to say something too. I don't have as much time as I'd hoped in this conversation I'm having with you, just because we have to keep things going. But I want to say something about President Donald Trump. Let's give it up for President Donald Trump. They've impeached the man twice. They've come after his businesses. They've attacked his family and his children. These are the most disgusting, vile, nasty people. They've tried to, tie him up in lawsuits. They've done so many things to attack President Trump, and he's still standing. And he's literally taken a bullet for all of us. I can't imagine. So we need to pray for President Trump. And I'm just reminded of George Washington, who, he just nearly escaped death. There was a bullet that went through his coat. And so that was a very, very scary time, I'm sure, for George Washington. And President Trump is reminiscent of George Washington. He is that type of leader. He is that type of leader that we need right now. And so we need to pray for President Trump. And I just want to say with all of you, you guys can make the difference in your prayers. And there's a lot more than I can say, but we've got to pray for President Trump. Last thing I'll say about youth. You know, did you know that America was built and founded by young people? George Washington was just 21 when he received his military commission. Abraham Lincoln was 22 when he first ran for public office. Thomas Jefferson was 33 when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, and there were a dozen signers under the age of 35. That's incredible. James Madison, another one of the founding fathers, was in his 30s when he wrote the U.S. Constitution, and then he wrote the Bill of Rights. Young people can make a difference, and I was told by Dave Barton, those are the old people, so there's a lot more that we could get into, but I'm just saying there's a lot of young people since our founding. Young people have made the difference. You guys can make the difference in our community, in our country. So fight for this country, fight for America, and don't give up. Thank you guys so much. God bless you. God bless Texas.
They're more upset at me for exposing what's going on in your kids' schools than they are of the fact that these things are happening. My goal is to become irrelevant. My goal is to shut down, because that will mean that gender ideology has been eradicated from this country and the sexualization of kids is over. That's when I will know that my mission's complete and I will shut down and move on. These far-left activists in our schools, they want to sexualize kids. They want to confuse them about their identity. They want to tear down childhood innocence. And children are the people that we have to protect.
Hello, thank you for this wonderful Texas-style welcome. It's an honor to be here today. I hope everyone's having a good time. That's great. Well, right now it's time to get serious. So what I'm about to present to you has nothing to do with politics. This really isn't about Democrats versus Republicans. This is about something much more critical: our youth, the future we are shaping for them, and the future of our country. I want you to imagine for a second a kid going to school. Maybe it's your sibling, your niece, your cousin, or even your younger self. She comes home from school and her parents ask her, "How was your day?" And they're expecting to hear about math class or an interesting story from history or maybe a literature lesson. But instead, she starts describing to her parents the drag show that took place at school where a grown man dressed up as a woman and danced provocatively for students. And that's exactly what happened in this Minnesota school. Or visualize this: you're sitting in your STEM lecture at a world-renowned university, waiting for your professor to walk in. I know a lot of you are college students. And all of a sudden, in walks a furry. Yes, this actually happened at UC Berkeley. You literally can't make this up. Welcome to 2024. If you think that's strange, how about a professor openly advocating for MAPS, aka pedophiles, from a college in upstate New York? These incidents aren't isolated. They reflect a larger issue of moral and intellectual decay spreading across our country. Now, how would you feel if any of these people were your professors or your child's educators? Sorry, let's go back. Okay, sorry about that. Well, let me share how I feel about all this. I miss the good old days when school was a place for education, where we were taught to be productive members of society, a time when teachers didn't expose us to inappropriate content, subject us to stripper shows, or instill hatred for our own country. I miss when librarians read books about space instead of books about how men can get pregnant. Who misses those good old days? Maybe I'm a bit old-fashioned, but when I grew up, and I'm not that old, there were only 2 genders, and everyone knew what a woman was. It was a much simpler time. And this brings me to my platform, which some of you might have heard of, called Libs of TikTok. Thank you. So one of the most common questions I get is, how did it start? How did it all begin? So I'll take you back. Let's go back to the days of COVID. The pandemic changed the world and turned our lives upside down. I mean, how many of you remember being told that you can't go to church, that you can't go to school, you can't go to the grocery? It was crazy. But more importantly, COVID, I think, was a great awakening. We began to see policymakers and elected officials engage in fear-mongering and authoritarian tactics, all while our rights were being slowly eroded. And worst of all, we weren't allowed to ask any questions. Remember when the mayor of New York City tried bribing us with French fries and burgers if we got the vaccine? Or how about all those videos of toddlers being kicked off of airplanes for not wearing a mask? Or what about the Biden administration asking big tech to censor people who questioned the vaccine on social media? It was an insane time. And if you spoke about anything, you were ridiculed and censored or silenced. So in the middle of all this, I stumbled across TikTok, and I saw all these bizarre videos of people singing and dancing about the vaccine and praising Fauci, telling us that we're all going to die at a moment's notice if we didn't do our part. And I found the content completely jarring and insane. And I thought to myself, surely other people must too. So I should spread the wealth and share the laughs. I mean, this was so entertaining. So I started basically anonymously sharing TikToks onto Twitter. And it turns out that I was right. People did find the content very funny and entertaining. However, at the same time, I think it also delivered a sharp reminder of the chaotic reality that we'd all been living in for so long, but couldn't quite articulate. So I'll never forget my first video that reached 1 million views. It was a guy singing in the Frozen Disney tune about how excited he was for the vaccine. And this is while thousands of Americans are losing their livelihoods because they didn't want to take an experimental vaccine. And meanwhile, a whole segment of society is cheering it on and laughing about it on TikTok. And it was just absolutely infuriating. So from there, I couldn't help but get into the fight. And I started sharing other types of TikToks with themes that I felt were important to the national conversation. And I was doing this all anonymously. And the goal was never to become famous or to be a public figure. But my next viral video was of 2 students getting kicked out of a multicultural center at Arizona State University simply for being white and supporting the police. And that video was my first really viral story, and it became front page news on every single news site in the country. And that's when I realized that this really went beyond COVID. This was about the social and cultural issues too. And I think people really connected with the content and it resonated with them. So I started receiving messages from hundreds of people pleading for me to help expose what was happening in their kids' schools, in their workplaces, in their colleges. And people were really fed up. And when they saw my content, they felt that I was their voice. And that's when it hit me. I had an audience that needed me, and I had become the voice for millions of Americans. So what started as a hobby, sharing entertaining COVID videos, turned into a mission to expose the depravity of the left and the evil agenda targeting children. Thank you. Now, when you stand up for what's right, it can be extremely challenging. It's tough to make change, and you sometimes feel overwhelmed by the system. There could be powerful forces working against you, and trust me, there are. But I kept on going because people were waking up to what was going on in our society and what activists were doing to children. So I kept anonymously sharing TikToks. Now, posting these videos angered the far left so much that they sent one of their minions at the Washington Post after me to plaster my name everywhere and dox me. This is Washington Post journalist at my home the day before doxing me. The Washington Post set out on a mission on behalf of media propagandists to silence me. And they thought intimidating me, showing up to my home, and doxing me would scare me into silence and shut me down. Now, I remember that day very clearly. It was the scariest, most chaotic day of my life. I remember thinking then, like, why am I even doing this? What do I gain from it? I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be a public figure. And sometimes it's really challenging, and it's hard and scary. I get attacked and defamed basically daily. I mean, am I the only one who's feeling like, what are we even doing? Why do we do what we do in our jobs, in our schools? What keeps you going? So that day, I'm thinking about my life, that day that I was doxxed, and that's when something clicked in my head. I thought back on my journey and realized that it's affecting real change. For example, remember the Don't Say Gay bill that DeSantis passed in Florida? Well, the media gave me credit for passing it, and I even heard that the governor was inspired by it because of some of the content that he saw on Libs of TikTok. So, thank you. So that day, I was able to look at tangible, real-world changes. And I think if you take a minute and think about what you're doing in your life, think about why you're doing it. Is there anything more you can do? Is there anything you can point to that's affecting positive change? Now, people often ask me, how do you deal with all the hate? Forget about the doxing, the daily hate, the death threats, the lies, the defamation. So my answer is actually very simple. My haters are the most vile, evil people on planet Earth. I mean, these are the people who want to chop off kids' body parts. They want porn in schools. They advocate for grown men to dress up as women and twerk in front of children. These are the people who want to do away with the Constitution, and they hate our country. So I would actually be very worried if they liked me. I bask in the compliment of their hatred. And then I think about all the wins that we have, and that's what keeps me going. Despite the left's grip on our culture, they control big tech, universities, Fortune 500 companies, the stores where we shop at for groceries. They control everything, but they can't silence you. They may dominate the media and wield power in the three-letter agencies, but if you're focused on your goal, they won't stop you, and I know they're not going to stop me. Our founding fathers would be appalled by what's happening today. They fought to escape tyranny, upholding liberty and freedom of speech. Yet those very freedoms are under attack. If you speak out, you're labeled with all kinds of insults and slurs and names. They'll censor you and try to silence you. I mean, I've been called anti-LGBT and transphobic simply for opposing porn in schools and standing against doctors performing irreversible, life-altering surgeries on confused teenagers. So don't pay attention to what people call you. They can throw any insult your way. It's just a weak attempt to silence you and take away your right to speak the truth. If you're strong and stay focused on the goal, it won't work. I've dedicated myself to exposing the agenda aimed at corrupting our kids and robbing them of their innocence, and I won't stop fighting for them, and you shouldn't either. Now, take the latest example of government malpractice. Earlier this year, the Senate Appropriations Committee released a spending bill that allocated $1 million of your tax dollars to renovate an LGBT center in Pennsylvania. And this was backed by Senators Bob Casey and John Fetterman, Democrats. And the center would host like all kinds of sex fetish parties. There was one even being held that week when this bill was being voted on. And I exposed this, I found out about it, and then Fetterman and Casey withdrew their funding. And in an unprecedented move, the Senate voted unanimously to remove the earmark for that funding. Now, just to focus on Texas, through Libs of TikTok, we've exposed radical left teachers, like this one in Corpus Christi, who publicly wished death on Donald Trump, and she was fired after we exposed her. We've also forced accountability on a Fort Worth school district after exposing pornographic books in their library catalog, resulting in a full scrub of their books and the firing of the individual who allowed the books to be there to begin with. Now, just 2 weeks ago, I was invited to have a seat at the table in the MAGA Influencer War Room in Philadelphia during the debate. And I imagine some people here must think that I'm probably used to this life by now, sitting among some really influential people, and I get to support Trump. But I would be lying if I said I did not constantly reflect on how blessed I really feel to have a hand in saving what normalcy is left in this country. So when I was there, I was presented with this letter from President Trump. So in it, he thanked me for my work, calling me a social media warrior. And this is the man who survived 2 assassination attempts, and he's calling me a warrior. The soon-to-be 47th President of the United States. The man who holds unmatched influence tells me that we will be in the White House together. And this is the kind of moment that most people only dream of. And I'm like sitting here thinking, like how did I get here? And I reflect on my journey. And I remember being there, holding the letter, and I'm thinking to myself, really, how did I get here? And I was just a random real estate agent before this in New York City. I had no background in media or politics. I had no experience in journalism. I didn't have a famous family name to open doors, meaning I wasn't Hunter Biden, who can use my last name to travel the globe and collect bags of cash. And yet here I am, sitting at the table with some very influential people with this letter from Trump. And here's the answer. I got here by being brave and speaking up. That's really it. I'm just one person with a Twitter account who wasn't afraid to tell the truth. And through that, I've been able to help legislators across the country enact laws to protect our kids. But here's the catch. If I could do it, so can every single one of you. So how do we take our country back? The answer is that it starts with you. It starts with you finding your courage. It starts with you using your First Amendment rights and making the decision to take action. It starts with you showing up at school board meetings, at city council meetings, at events like this, wherever your voice is needed. It starts with you being brave and making the decision to join the fight to save our country. My story proves that one person can make the decision and have an enormous impact. Now, before I leave, I'm just going to share with you a personal story. Imagine being a teenager, attending boarding school in a far-off city, far away from your family, when war breaks out across all the neighboring countries. Now, that's exactly the situation that my grandfather found himself in back in 1940. He was stranded in Lithuania with his classmates as war raged across Europe. And the Nazis were hunting down every single last Jew. And this young group basically gave up on surviving. But then an unexpected hero emerged. Allow me to introduce you to Shiune Sugihara. He was a Japanese diplomat stationed in Lithuania at the time. He saw the dire plight of the Jews, and he made a courageous decision to defy his superiors, risk his own life, and save as many Jews as he can. Sugihara began issuing visas to anyone who needed one, granting them an escape route from certain death. Some sources say he issued over 5,000 visas, no doubt saving thousands of lives. My grandfather was one of the fortunate ones to receive one of those coveted visas and escape to Japan and survive the war. It's estimated that as many as 100,000 people who are alive today are descendants from those who Sugihara saved, and I am one of them. I stand here today because of the bravery and selflessness of one individual. For that, I, along with tens of thousands of others, will forever be indebted to him. Now, there's a famous saying, anyone who saves just one life, it's as if they saved an entire world. And Sugihara's story proves that there truly is no limit to what one person can accomplish when they choose to stand up for what's right. So I'm here today to remind you that there is hope. You can make a difference. You can be a hero, because all it takes is one person to stand up for what's right, and that person could be you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, North Korean defector but now American citizen Yeonmi Park.
Talking to Yeonmi Park with Yeonmi Park.
I came to this country now I call home, but something I found was so alarming and shocking. More than 70% of millennials thinking that socialism is something that America can take. This ideology literally can ruin our country, our future, and our family.
This person was also pretty much like me when I was in North Korea. Now this person thinks their oppression is somehow their pronouns. They are making problems out of nowhere, creating injustice out of thin air.
Hey everyone! Hello! Hi everyone! I can't be out of this thing, right? I'm very small, so I want to see all of you.
Wow, what an honor to be here. Honestly, I still get very nervous whenever I have to speak, share my story. And then I often tell myself this one story. Even if you go up there and mess up and say something stupid, you're not going to be executed. So what do you have to be afraid of, right? And this is where I feel like it's what a blessing to be free. What a miracle to be living in a country like America. I have a special, Houston, Texas has a special place in my heart. When I came to America for the first time, I actually landed in Texas at the airport. Thank you. But at the time, I was still from North Korea. I still remember these propaganda things that my teachers taught me in North Korea, where Americans are cold-blooded monsters with a big nose for some reason. I don't know why. They would try to torture me, rape me, and kill me. And with that fear, when I touched it at the airport and got out of my gate, I just looked at the people, and they were like in their hoodies, eating chips, and saying hi. They were the friendliest people in the whole world. And from Houston, I took another flight. I went to this place called Tyler, Texas. Does anybody know Tyler, Texas? Yay! And as soon as I got to Tyler, Texas, the people there took me to Walmart to prepare my stay at that dormitory. And when I got to Walmart, that was the very first place I went to actually in America. I couldn't believe it because I was about to pick up some toothpaste, apples, and some things you need in the dorm. There are dozen types of apples. There are dozen types of toothpaste. It's like whitening, whole care, cavity, mint. I mean, like, I couldn't, because in North Korea, the fanciest time I did is using my finger and salt. And I fell in love with capitalism. I fell in love with America. Thank you. Thank you so much. But before that, I did grow up in a most oppressed nation called North Korea. North Korea is often known by the world stage by a fat dictator with a funny haircut. But most of people don't have any clue what there are 25 million human lives are trapped in the biggest concentration camp humanity has ever seen. And that is why I'm here to share my story, how I escaped from North Korea. I was born in 1993 in the northern part of North Korea. I had one sister. I had loving parents. But growing up in North Korea, whenever I get up, the first thing I had to do is always bowing in front of the portraits of the dictators, what I called the leader. And if the house caught fire, if you fail to protect those portraits, 3 generations of your family get executed. And I still remember the very first thing that my mom taught me when I was younger. She sat me down one day and she said, "Don't even whisper, because birds and mice could hear you. If you said one wrong word, it was going to kill up to 8 generations of my family." My tongue was the most dangerous thing that I had in my body. I didn't go to school like normal children would. And when I went to school in North Korea, I learned, other than learning about, the biology or any of that, I learned how to hate American bastards. Actually, that was a one word. If I would call you guys Americans, it'd be too respectful. I had to call you American bastards. Even when they taught us numbers to children, they said, there are 4 American bastards. You killed 2 of them. Then how many American bastards are left to kill? I said 2 American bastards. And now I became bastard myself. I became a citizen last year. Thank you.
I think that was my biggest revenge to North Korean dictatorship by becoming American and voting for President Trump this November for the first time. I mean, like, what a life, isn't it? I had actually never thought that they would come. Someday I would become an American, go there and vote for President Trump. So, studying all about this propaganda, but North Korea is a unique. It's not just like a normal dictatorships like Cuba or even China or even Soviet Union. North Korea started as a communism, then made themselves socialism, and then it made something else. They decide to, the state, the dictator, decide to become a god. You know why the first thing when the communism comes, they get rid of Christianity? Because they want to be God themselves. So that's what North Korean dictatorship did. Kim Il-sung, actually the very first Kim, who grew up in a Christian family, when he became the leader, he got rid of the entire Bible and killed all the Christians. And he said, I love you guys so much. I'm God. I'm giving you my son, Kim Jong-il, whose body dies, but whose spirit is with us forever. And that's how they brainwash North Korean people. That we somehow believe that Kim Jong-il has a power to even read our thoughts. And when there's no internet in North Korea, therefore, people have no idea. They believe what they are told to. But even in this darkness of, lack of knowledge and light, I was able to see something else. It was when I watched bootlegged film coming from China through the border. Somehow my parents were loving watching WWE pro wrestling. Do you know why? I think because it was not a political content, the Chinese smugglers smuggled it into North Korea. And my mom still believes till this day it's a real game. And after this pro wrestling game, I got to see a film called movie Titanic. As a young girl, I watched the movie Titanic for the first time. And in North Korea, we don't have like 24 hours electricity. It took months for me to finish one movie because it's such a long movie. But when I finished that movie, I was so confused. Because in North Korea, there is no word for love. Like Kim Jong-un literally banned Mother's Day because he thought if we love our mothers, we are not going to love him as much. So love between husband and wife, love between mother and daughter is denied, doesn't exist. We don't have the vocabulary to describe what love is. And in this movie, for the first time I saw, a human being can leave something for other than the revolution of the Communist Party. Why does this guy die for the love of this woman? And that gave me the first glimpse of outside the world and taste of freedom. But even then, I still had no idea what the rest of the world like. And when I was watching that movie, I was really concerned that the producers of the movie actually got executed. So when I got out, when I heard that DiCaprio was very much alive, I was very happy. But then I heard that he was dating a lot of young models in LA. So it's like, my interest there ends. Thank you. But by the time when I was 13 years old, it was 2007, it came to the point where I could not find even bug to it. A lot of people, when I meet them, I'm like, you got to be joking. How can anybody dying from starvation in the 21st century? And I North Koreans are same people genetically as South Koreans. We have 5,000 shared history, 5,000 years shared history. North Koreans are on average 5-inch shorter than South Koreans because of the chronic malnutrition we experience. The fanciest meal that I ate in North Korea was eating grasshoppers. And now I live in New York City and have so many people saying how we need to eat the bugs to save climate. Like, climate is like, no way, But that is like how, because governments use hunger as a tool to control people. Have you ever seen the movie Hunger Games before? Or read the book? It's exactly like that. North Korean regime divided people into different districts and feed the people in the capital who are loyal to the government. And but if you are not in that district, you get starved. And if your only concern for you is looking for the next meal, you have no time to think about the meaning of life or freedom, anything else. Every single second is survival to find food. And that's why North Koreans are starving. Not because they are not working or there's natural disaster or there's no food. The government purposefully starves the people so they don't rebel. So at 13, I decided to escape from North Korea. Luckily, I was living in the border town called Haesan, right across from China. The reason I want to escape is not because I had the internet and looked up, but because at nighttime, I saw lights coming from Chinese side. And North Korea, have you ever seen the satellite picture of North Korea at nighttime? It is like the darkest place in the world. So in that darkness, I thought maybe if I go where the lights are, I might be able to find a bowl of rice. With that, my mother and I escaped together. As soon as I crossed the Yalu River into China, by the way, North Korean border is not like American southern border. There are machine guns with the guards, shoot anybody who crosses. But luckily, we found the lady who wanted to help us. I didn't question why she wanted to help us, but the reason she was helping us, eventually I found out in Chinese side, was that she was selling us as sex toys to Chinese men. China had a one-child policy, right? And this is how evil, how stupid the government can be. They never thought all the side effects that policy could bring. Because of this one-child policy, so many people in China wanted to keep boys and abort the girls. Therefore, now there are 33 million Chinese men cannot find wives. And Chinese regime is afraid of these young single men who cannot even find wives, so they want to appease them somehow. So how would you appease them? Buying sex toys from North Korea and give it to this man. That's how state-sponsored human trafficking is happening in China. I was 13 in 2007. With my mother, we got to China, and they sold my mother and myself separately. They sold my mother for $65 at the time, and they sold me over $200. I asked the broker, I still vividly remember what he said. I asked him, why do I worth more than my mom? Because I was at the time like 50 pounds, half of this size. And he said, oh, you're more expensive than your mom because there are a lot of men in China love taking child virginity away. So because you're a child virgin, you are worth way more than your mom. So that's how I got separated from my mother. I was sold to another human trafficker who was by another buyer who would pay more money. And he was trying to rape me, and I was going to kill myself because there was no reason why I had to continue to live life. When I was trying to kill myself, this man who bought me said, if I do commit to him and be his sex toy, he said he was going to help me to save my family. So I thought if I sacrificed myself, I could save my family. So I did become his mistress, and he bought my mom from the man that he sold to, and he brought my sick father from North Korea to me. After 2 years in China, by the time it was 2009, right after Beijing Olympic, I'm sure some of you remember the time when Beijing had Olympic, right? My father passed away, and my mother and I left, but this man would let me go in China. But where would you go as a North Korean in China? There's no place to go. There's no way you can even washing dishes or being a waitress or nothing because government would catch you and send you back to North Korea. And there are 3 to 4 places usually North Korean women end up in China. First place is what I said about human trafficking to fake this called husband. Second place is a brothels where you go and get raped every single day until you die. And last place where we will end up is called some place called the chat rooms. In these chat rooms where you don't get raped physically, but because they give you safe space to eat and sleep, you do have to show your naked body to your customers every day inside. And I thought, at least I'm not getting raped physically in this room. I can be safe. So in this chat room, funny enough, I realized the man who I supposed to show my body to were South Korean men. And I was like, how is that possible, right? Those South Koreans were colonized by American bastards. How do they even have money enough to do this? And in that room, I realized South Koreans were free and there was safe world out there. And then we met another lady in this chat room, and she said there are Christian missionaries came to China rescuing North Koreans, and they might be able to help us. So I called this Christian missionary, and this lady said, there's a way to be free. You can go somewhere to be free. And I've never heard that word in my life. So I asked this lady, what do you mean I'm gonna be free? And how would you explain freedom to a North Korean person? She did a perfect job. She said, sweetie, if you go to South Korea, you can wear jeans and you can watch K-dramas. And nobody's going to arrest you for that. Because in North Korea, literally, for that, people get executed and sent to prison camp for wearing jeans and watching a wrong movie. And I told them, I want to go this place, and how do I go there? They said, if I want to do that, I had to go walk across frozen Gobi Desert into Mongolia from China. And if I survive that journey in Mongolia, I might be able to go to South Korea. We did some miracle. I made it. Do you know how many North Koreans over the last 80 years made it to America? Just 209 of us. And I am one of that person. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I survived the Gobi Desert, and I think it only has to be a miracle of God. As you can see me, I'm not the strongest person to survive such a condition. And I was sent to South Korea. 5 years later, I came to America to study at Columbia University in New York. Thank you. I thought I made it. I made it to the promised land, and I'm going to pursue higher education. And how can anything be wrong with it? But the very first week, not even before the class, the orientation week at Columbia University, I saw something unbelievable. I saw same exact tactics that were using in North Korea to brainwash North Koreans were used at Columbia University. My professors, instructors were literally asking me, stay angry, stay outraged, because America is racist and evil. And I was thinking, are you a psychopath? Do you know what the outside world look like? And then my classmates, in their Lululemon yoga pants, in their green juice detox, telling me how we need to tear down the Constitution, how we need to dismantle American system, because capitalism is evil, it creates inequality, it makes billionaires. And I'm actually unfortunately represented by AOC in New York right now. What an irony. She says things like, nobody makes $1 billion, they take $1 billion. And I was like looking at them in their pocket, they have this iPhone. I'm like, do you really tell me that Steve Jobs stole that money from you? You didn't go voluntarily bought that iPhone in your hand? In free market, we make money through innovating, by enriching each other's lives. And they said, okay, if that's the case, then look outside. There are homeless people. There are people without homes. Therefore, that's a sign why capitalism is evil. And I'm like, as a North Korean, I could not believe you have a right not to do anything with your life. What do you think gonna happen to you if in North Korea one day gonna be, I'm gonna chill, I'm not gonna work, just hang out on the street. The government gonna come, arrest you, and send you work camp. The fact that people even have a right to not to do anything and be homeless, to me is a sign of tolerance and sign of freedom. I mean, thank you. Seriously. And they say, well, what about there are so many good, delicious food, it makes us stay fat. That's why capitalism is evil. I'm like, have you ever seen children eating mud? When you eat mud, you cannot go to the bathroom, you're gonna die. But the parents, even they know that, they do let their children eat the mud, because that's a last wish, chewing something. That is, poverty is evil. Not having so much delicious food is evil. If there's a way I can show these people, all ship them to North Korea one way, it'd be amazing, but we cannot do that. So that's why I'm here today. If there's a one thing that we can learn from North Korea, it has to be that what becomes of us when we stop fighting for individual liberty, when we stop fighting for the God-given rights, and when we stop fighting for the small government. I think nothing has been worse than big government to humanity. We do need to watch out our governments. They are not our gods. They cannot take care of us, and it's up to us to defend our freedom. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
I'm founder and president of Texas Youth Summit. My name is Christian Collins, and I just want to encourage everyone here that it's okay not to be okay. I know there's a lot of young people, and all people really, struggling with their mental health. And I know a personal story where I've seen that if you just hung on a little bit longer, in your darkest time, if you hung on a little bit longer, then things did get better. This individual got involved in church, they got counseling, and they asked for help. That's the most important thing. So whatever it is you're going through, ask for help, but suicide is definitely not the answer. There's a lot of great resources here in Montgomery County. Breaking Strongholds is a great TV series available on Amazon Prime and YouTube, and they're doing great work to encourage our youth. Mighty Oak Warriors is another nonprofit that does faith-based treatment to help with our veterans and to point them toward God, as well as Mosaics of Mercy, who's doing great work. These are all great resources that I can point you to. I want to end by just saying that God has a plan for your lives, and He wants you to be full of joy. When weeping endures for a night, but joy comes in the morning, is what the scripture says. So I encourage you to get close to God, and He can make all the difference.
This is the most important election in our lifetime. This election will decide the fate of our great nation. We are done being told by the radical left to sit down, shut up, and obey. The Democrat vision for America is governed by fear, hatred, and political oppression. Our vision is defined by a love of our country, love for our fellow citizens, and our love of freedom. I love some good sparklers, right? How we do in Texas? There you go. How we doing, freedom-loving Americans? How are we doing, Americans that put America first? How are we doing, Americans that stand for our flag? How are we doing, Americans that can't wait for Donald Trump to get back in office with a huge victory on November 5th? There you go. Because it is all on the line. And what an honor and pleasure to be here. And thank you, especially to Christian Collins for the job that he does, because we all stand for faith and family and freedom in this incredible country that we call America, the beautiful United States of America that will be united again under the presidency of Donald Trump, the 45th and, God willing, 47th President of the United States. You are all here in this room because you care. You care deeply about this country, about our shared values, about the mission that we are all inspired to take together to make sure that we recognize this country. And I see so many incredible friends and families in here and children. And it's important that we protect our children and their future and that we help them to understand what it means to have a love of country, a love of freedom, a love of liberty, to be able to put it all on the line, to fight for the values that we all share. If we do not succeed, which I will not accept, in this next election, we will not recognize this beautiful country. And I know so many of you think that and feel that and believe it with all your heart and all your soul. We have fought many battles together. We have worked tirelessly to make sure that we can protect this country, that we can protect our families, because we do not want politicians in DC, in the swamp, telling us how to vote, how to live, how to raise our children. We know best. The indoctrination needs to stop. It has to stop, and with President Trump, it will stop. We don't want people who support children having gender transitions or telling our children that it's okay to use a litter box if you identify as a cat in the hallway of a classroom. Yeah? That's what's happening. And my good friend Mary Margaret Olahan over at the Daily Wire put out an unbelievable story today. There are 22,000 foreigners in federal prisons right now that each one of us, United States taxpayers, are paying for gender transitions. What is going on in this country? Right? Do you want to put a stop to it? Well, Donald Trump can put a stop to it. We can make sure that we restore the values that have made this country great, that we can protect families, protect children, neighborhoods, restore, as a former prosecutor, I tell you, law and order, public safety, respect for law enforcement, for our military, for our veterans, for first responders, for those who go overseas for dangerous missions to keep our freedoms protected. Under President Trump, we would have never had this disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. Shameful, terrible loss of life that could have and would have been prevented. Under President Trump, we would not have the turmoil and all these different geopolitical regions across the world. You would not see what's happened in Ukraine. You would not see Putin emboldened. You would not see Kim Jong-un emboldened. You would not see China emboldened against Taiwan. You would not see the atrocity and massacres that we have seen against our allies in Israel. So you see
that it's that important. And we know the difference because we actually have lived it in American political history. We understand, we experience the juxtaposition between a Trump presidency with a booming economy, all different socioeconomic backgrounds lifted up, and the disastrous Harris-Biden administration, which has crushed the souls and the hearts of hard-working American men and women in this country. Today and tomorrow and for every day after that, we say no more. We will stand for the American workers. We will stand for the American families. We will rebuild the strength of this country. We will embrace and not apologize for American exceptionalism. We will keep this country safe and strong. We will be respected through that strength. We will achieve again peace through strength, like President Trump did. Don't be afraid to ask for it because this country deserves it. With our incredible history of inclusiveness, of lifting families up, of, yes, immigrants that came to this country legally, lawfully, with due process, to come and live their American dream. We're for that, are we not? Border security is national security, and we have an open and porous border that has left America weakened and not at her best. We have people pouring in through the borders. We have child and sex trafficking. We have drugs, narcotics, fentanyl coming in our borders and poisoning the beautiful people in this country. The loss of even one life is too much, and that's why we fight. But they will do whatever it takes to try to stop this movement, to try to crush the American dream, to try to stop President Trump. But thanks be to God, and by divine providence, he is unbreakable. He is unstoppable, and he is fearless in his resolve and his courage to fight for each and every one of you. And we stand for President Trump. We stand for the family. We stand for this country unapologetically, and we will defy all the odds. Not once, twice they tried to take him down and take his life. But God has a white light around President Trump to protect him and to protect this country and each and every one of you. They have, through relentless persecution, prosecuted this president, indicted him, tried to sentence him, all of the above, because they want to stop him. They want to do whatever it takes to make sure that President Trump is not restored to the Oval Office. But I have news for them. Trump 2024. With President Trump, we will make America strong again, and I know you believe it. He cares so deeply. It is the last thing that President Trump and the family would ever have to do is get back in the game again. But guess what? He says, yes, I will. Yes, we will. With all of you, with the support of great, fearless Americans who love this country and respect a man who's willing to put it all on the line. Because the only thing that stands between us and them is President Trump. And they know this. They fear it. And they should be worried. He is the leader that this country deserves, a true commander-in-chief. Not someone like Kamala Harris, who hasn't accomplished anything except had elections handed to her, primaries handed to her that she didn't even have to participate in. Someone who has failed us with the economy, at the border, and everywhere in between. And I truly believe in this country. And I believe in President Trump, my great friend of 20 years. He is the man right now in the arena who will save this country with the help of God. With President Trump and each and every one of you, I know you believe it in your hearts. We will make this country safe again. We will make this country healthy again. We will make this country strong again. We will make this country great again. You believe it? And I know this because we have great fighters like Donald Trump Jr., who will be up in a bit, that fight every single day, the tip of the spear, to fight to save this country, to fight for his father. And I think that tells you everything you need to know about the family, about the measure of the man, and about what they're all willing to do collectively. I love our odds. And I'll tell you, like I said, with the help of God, we are going to do this. And I want to say thank you to all of you for being here, for fighting, for believing, for willing to put it on the line. We are the front lines to restore American prosperity and strength and freedom and liberty. We will not take a knee to anyone. We will continue to fight. We will persevere. We will win. And with the help of God, we will make America great again. God bless you and your families. Thank you for being here.
Texas State Senator Brandon Creighton.
Brandon Creighton.
Now is State Senator Brandon Creighton.
Joined now by Senator Brandon Creighton, the author of the anti-DEI legislation.
The policies, the strategies, the structure that we have in place with DEI today is not working.
Political leftist loyalty oaths required of every professor applying for a job. We're just not going to stand for that in Texas. That's a chilling effect on free speech. And if you have exclusivity with free speech, you have no inclusion. And if you have no inclusion, DEI has failed and it needs to be removed.
How's everybody? Let's give Kimberly Guilfoyle a round of applause. A big Texas, Montgomery County round of applause. It's great to see all of you here tonight. It's wonderful to be a part of the Texas Youth Summit. I want to thank Christian Collins for continuing year after year to knock this out of the park. Let's give Christian a round of applause. You know, we all heard Kimberly's remarks, and we know what the Trump family is doing to stand for America. We certainly are going to do our part as Texans and Montgomery County citizens to show how we are, as Texans, the tip of the spear for the future of this nation. Am I right? Political leaders in Texas alone, our statewides, don't just understand how important the Texas vote is. The Texas vote matters to the future and the survival of this country. And we're all going to be a part of it, including our young voters and first-time voters here tonight. Can I hear from you? And who is ready here tonight to help the Trump family retire permanently from politics? Kamala Harris. That's what we're about to do, isn't it? I mean, we've seen all of her coddled interviews. Well, wait, she's only done interviews over the past 5 or 6 days, right? She seems to be hiding from the tough questions. We even have as statewide officials here tonight, we have Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, who is one of the strongest patriots in America. Let's give Sid Miller a round of applause. Sid is traveling this country right now on a bus tour called Let's Show Every American Under Bidenomics How Miserable They've Become. And the data and the math and the costs of inflation, it's there, right? Not just right here in Texas, but all over the nation. Sid's been on a bus tour working day in and day out to help President Trump get his message across, especially in these contested states, as we call them. In Texas, we're very thankful for our conservative family values. We feel like we have the pulse of not only this state right here in Montgomery County, but the pulse of America on the future of this country. But the other side is dark, right? I mean, these days, you're either a Democrat or you're an American. Am I right? And in the Texas Capitol, we've taken a stand against all of these woke, garbage indoctrination policies that have polluted our schools and our college campuses and ultimately the boardroom in corporate America, getting rid of and banning DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, with the strongest legislation in America passed this last session. And let me tell you, you hear a lot of rhetoric about bills being the strongest in the country. Let me tell you why it's the strongest bill in the country. And I had an 8-hour debate over it in the 100 steps to get it to the governor's desk through the Texas Capitol in 2023. I took a lot of arrows over that bill. But let me tell you why it's the strongest bill in the country. Because if a university renames, relaunches, or reauthorizes diversity, equity, and inclusion units that have quite frankly been weaponized against the most marginalized communities on campus in the ultimate hypocrisy you could imagine, and also required for any professor interviewing for a job, you have to sign a leftist, Marxist political oath to even get the interview. Can you believe that? And wonder why our universities have so many liberal professors and very few conservatives. But the bill is the strongest in the country because it defunds the university completely if they reauthorize it, relaunch, or rename DEI units in the state of Texas. And these will permanently be gone. In this session, we're going to even strengthen it more. So ESG and CRT in our K through 12 public schools and the DEI woke garbage at our university level, Texas is taking a stand because outside of our faith and our conversations at the dinner table each night with our family, the future of America will be found, and certainly the future of Texas, in the classroom. And Joe Rogan had a podcast recently that he showed a video of a top Putin official that was asked, you know, our enemy, what are we going to do about the United States of America? And his answer was, we don't have to do a thing. It will be handled in the American classroom in 5 to 15 years. Folks, Texas is not going to stand for that indoctrination, for the woke ideologies, for the curriculum that commandeers common sense. We will remain common sense for the future of this country. And the Trump family and Donald Trump himself, 45, who will be our next president, he will restore, first, law and order to our border, our southern border that we're dealing with day in and day out in this great state, where the Trump wall lays on the ground still today at $150 million a month to the taxpayer, and Texas state government separately is building its own wall because the Biden administration has commandeered that effort. Texas took over Shelby Park in Eagle Pass that had 5,000 crossings per day illegal immigrants, some of the most violent people in the world coming through that park. And Texas took that from the feds, commandeered the park, and now those crossings have been limited to 10. 10 total. These state policies are working, but we need Donald Trump back in the White House. And Donald Trump's election and Kamala Harris's defeat will go down as, for all of our lifetimes, the most important election that we have ever experienced and witnessed. So don't rest on your laurels knowing that Texas is a conservative state. U.S. Senator Ted Cruz needs our vote and our help and our motivation and our work, and so does President Trump, because we have seen what the other side is willing to do to stop President Trump from being reelected, and we are going to stand behind him with the fortitude that he is showing and the courage to get him there. Am I right? To our new voters in the room and those at this Texas Youth Summit for the first time as young voters, let me tell you that we need you to continue to work and scrape and climb and be engaged and not just vote, not just get elected officials elected, but to plan on running for office yourself. We need people of integrity. We need people of character. We need godly people running for office. And as my dad used to tell me, and I was the youngest Republican in the Texas House when I was elected. I was the youngest Republican senator in the Texas Senate when I was elected in that chamber. I was always told, you're too young to run. Wait. Let me tell you, do not wait. Walk every door. Work your campaign in the future like with a passion that you have for service, to be a servant leader, and the voter will respect that work ethic, and they're craving it. So with that, I want to thank you for being able to serve Senate District 4, which is right here. The Woodlands is in my home county, Montgomery County, Texas, for those of you that have traveled here for the Youth Summit. And I want to say that it's a great privilege to work in our Texas capital, making sure that Texas is the last stand and that there is no other Texas to escape to. You know what I mean? Those of you here that are tried and true Texans. So with that, I want to introduce someone that really needs no introduction. Donald Trump Jr. is traveling this nation, speaking out with courage, with compassion and conviction for the future of this country, and working day in and day out to lead the America First agenda, while he also maintains an incredibly successful real estate business that has long successful history. But as a job creator and as someone that's taking time away from the private sector to make sure that this nation is in good hands, we want to give him a warm round of applause from Montgomery County, Texas, welcoming Donald Trump Jr. to the stage for his remarks and his words here tonight. So let's give him a round of applause. Welcome, Donald Trump Jr.
We are joined now by the president's son, Donald Trump Jr. Don Jr. and Donald Trump Jr.
Donald J. Trump Jr.
All hell has broken loose in America, and it's impossible to hide anymore. They lied about Russia collusion. They lied about the border being secure. They lied about inflation being transitory. They lied about Joe Biden's fitness for office. The America we all grew up with feels like an old photograph. But our greatest days are yet to come. What's going on, Houston? I like this. Wow. Texas Youth Summit is growing. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Maybe we'll let these die down a little bit. With my luck these days, I'll catch on fire. I'll look like Tim Waltz coming out at a rally, like rolling around like Chris Farley. What a clown that guy is, huh? I mean, can you imagine a more weak group than that guy? It's like a TV sitcom, you know, where the guy is the imbecile and the woman is also the imbecile. That's what we're running against right now. It's pretty scary, but I'd like to thank the senator for the introduction, and he's 100% right. We can't take anything for granted this time around. We can't take it for granted in Texas. We can't take it for granted anywhere in the country. It should be so obvious, folks, to anyone with a brain, anyone who's been paying attention. When were you better off? You had 4 years under Biden-Harris, just so we're clear, right? It's the Biden-Harris administration. We've been hearing for the media like Kamala Harris started her political career 3 weeks ago when she was part of a coup to save democracy by not getting any votes in a Democratic primary, by displacing the guy that did get the votes. You notice it was the first time we actually ever saw the truth from the media, ever? Certainly in my lifetime. Most certainly in the last 10 years. They were actually honest for the first time ever. They actually talked the truth about Joe Biden. They said, you know, he's old, he's infirm, he's incompetent, he's an idiot, we've failed under these policies. And I was like, wow, what's going on here? Felt like I was taking crazy pills. They're actually telling the truth. What's going on here? Well, we knew they actually weren't telling the truth because they decided to magically become honest about what's going on in the world. They were telling the truth because they understood that Joe Biden could not win. They understood that everyone saw the weakness that he exuded, his incompetence. He couldn't remember where he was most of the time. You know, if Trump, remember when he went down the banister and it was like the slippery thing on that rainy day and he held onto the banister and they're like, oh, that's it. Trump is in the later stages of dementia and Alzheimer's combined. Every telepsychologist was out there saying, you know, we must implement the 25th Amendment. He's like, no, he just didn't want to fall on national TV. Joe Biden can fall up the stairs and down the stairs of Air Force. I've never seen someone fall upstairs, right? Like it's almost incredible, right? Like, it'd be funny if that wasn't the guy in charge of the nuclear codes, right? Like, I swear, guys, I wake up some days and I feel like I'm like Jim Carrey in The Truman Show. You know, I'm like looking up, I'm like waiting for cameras to fall out, like someone in the front row, it's a little bright, like blink 3 times if I'm just the star of The Truman Show and the world is just messing with me and I just don't know it. I'm the only guy that's not in on the joke because it's that bad, right? Like it can't be real, and yet it is. So we had 3 weeks of media clarity and honesty, and big tech wasn't doing their thing, and they let us ridicule Joe Biden as he deserved to be ridiculed. As he deserved, frankly, to be ridiculed for the last 4 years. And then they got what they wanted. The guy that actually won Democrat primary votes, that actually won a process put on that would be considered the democratic process, was just erased, put aside. I saw the other day they said, no, Kamala Harris won her position in an open primary. I go, was there a single vote cast? Please explain it to me. That's the problem. They talk to us like we're clowns. Like no, they said it's a democratic process. I mean, this is what they went through. I think Gavin Newsom actually had a moment of honesty, and it's probably only because he hates Kamala Harris because he's jealous that she's in that position, and perhaps he could have been. He was like, well, she won an open and honest thing, and that's what they told me to say, so I'm going to do it, and the media will parrot that. And then right away, within seconds, we bastardized democracy to save democracy. We're jailing
our political opponents to save democracy. We have states that have gone out of their way to change their election laws, to prevent people from voting for the person they wanted to vote for in order to save democracy. And I start thinking to myself, maybe these people don't care at all about democracy. Because they don't. They care about power. They care about winning and maintaining that power, and then forcing, not through a democratic process, but forcing their ideals, no matter how insane, upon us and our children. It was fun watching Hillary Clinton this week. People should be put in jail for misinformation and disinformation. She would love to see that implemented. I go, when are they arresting Hillary for Russia, Russia, Russia? I'm not in favor, for the record. I'm not in favor of jailing people for free speech, for having an idea. And let's not forget, her idea of misinformation is just if you disagree with her. It has nothing to do with being right, right? When they inevitably try to get this done, who do you think is going to be the arbiter of truth? Like CNN? Is it going to be the people that told us that Russia, Russia, Russia was actually real? I know, and I take this one a little bit personally. Like I said, I'll make an exception for Hillary because she knew what she was doing. She doesn't care. Just like she knew what she was doing on Monday, the day after they tried to kill my father again. It's getting old, right? It's like, trust me, it's weird. Like, I'm the father of 5 young kids. They play with their grandfather all the time at that very golf course. They're always out there with. I'm like, I can assure you, no one should have to talk to their young children a second time about trying to kill their grandfather that they love very much. And yet it didn't stop the media from immediately. He brought this upon himself. I'm waiting for like Merrick Garland and the DOJ to charge my father for being a part of an assassination. He may have been the intended victim. He's still part of it. He's part of it. We must jail him. That's the clown show we live in right now. He is responsible for radical leftist, Democrat donors trying to kill him. Not the people that said, he is the greatest threat to democracy ever for like 10 years, every day, day in and day out, the only soundbite they got. He is literally Hitler, folks. You don't think they know exactly what that's doing? When Hillary Clinton on Monday, within 24 hours, said he's a unique threat to our democracy, like the lunatic, there's too many kids in the room where I'd say the bat-ass crazy person that she is. You don't think that's on purpose? You don't think she knows? She's not the sharpest tool in the shed, and she's the least likable human in American political history, maybe in American history. True story. But she'll say it again. I will say this, the one thing that's good about Hillary, we can all take great solace that at least come November 5th, win, lose, or fraud, that crazy woman will never be president. So, you go through this not very democratic process, you get Kamala Harris. Now, the media is literally pretending like she started her political career, as I said, like a month ago. She is going to be a great moderate. I go, I don't know, it seems like a stretch. How dare you say that? She is, an African-American woman. We must need that kind. Well, what does that do? Like, how about ability? I would rather have that. Like, we saw that. Again, we had time under both presidents, both ideas. The media is saying Kamala Harris is going to be the agent of change. Yeah, she's changed everything for the worse. If she was going to change anything, why not, like, start, I don't know, 3.5 years ago? Like, if you're really going to change things for the better, like, if you're going to be the agent of change, why did you take the Harris-Biden policies and cut and paste them to be your policies? It took them a month to get them up there, but they didn't even change the source code, so we know it's exactly the same. She's not going to change anything. You're not going to change a radical California daughter of a Marxist professor, someone who was rated the most liberal person in the United States Senate, left of Bernie Sanders, because at least Bernie Sanders cared about American jobs. That doesn't just change. You don't change those stripes. That would be like Donald Trump Jr. waking up one day and being like, soft. Not gonna happen, folks, I'm sorry. Just not in the cards. I'd have to become a Democrat, and that would be a long shot. Like, it's literally, it would be impossible for my testosterone to go that low. It's just, like, it's like, if there was like a reverse TRT program, like, there's not enough of that stuff around to, like, make me that soft. It's just not gonna happen. But they're gonna try to tell you, she's not gonna ban your guns. You know, it was 10 days before the debate where she said that and didn't get fact-checked. We saw that was a little one-sided. 10 days before that, she talked about a gun buyback program, mandatory. Just so we're clear, a mandatory gun buyback program is taking your guns, right? You understand what part makes it taking your guns? The whole mandatory, right? It's kind of a big word in there. But then she'll get up on the stage and in front of the American public, I would never do that. It's like, well, you voted for all these things. Here's all your comments from the past years. Here's what you said 10 days ago. And then 4 days after the debate, she wanted to institute another assault weapons ban. But she's not going to do it, guys. You know how else we know she's going to lie and will lie about any of these things? Because they've done it about everything. Remember the 2020 Democrat primary debates? Would you ban fracking in the United States? Whose hand went up on that stage? No, everyone's. Everyone's. Because that's Democrat Party policy today. But Kamala Harris went up, Joe Biden went up, and the other rest of the clown show went up. I think it was your wonderful transportation secretary. We're not sure what he's done other than fail. Pete Buttigieg, his hand went up. But he can be the transportation secretary because he has no experience, but he's gay and checks a couple boxes. Again, it's not about ability. It's not about merit. How many boxes can you check? Therefore, you should be qualified. All of their hands went up. They all said it on the record in front of tens of millions of Americans. People that were bored enough to watch that crap for like 90 minutes. Imagine giving these idiots a chance at this point. It's hard. It's hard to believe. They all went up. And then, a couple weeks later, the debate with Joe Biden and my father. Well, he said he'd ban fracking. I would never ban fracking. Joe Biden saying, I would never, media, he would never do it. I go, but he said it like 3 weeks ago. What are you talking about? He's on the record. Like, this wasn't like an offhand comment to someone. It wasn't a deep fake, which all ended up being true. It was real. He said it out loud to everyone. But they knew it would cost him votes. In Pennsylvania and Ohio and Michigan and obviously in Texas for congressional seats, and Oklahoma, and other people that work in the oil and gas industry across the country. So you had a full court press to say he would never do that. He would never do it. It was so convincing. They got the American people to believe it for a little bit. And then on day one, what'd they do? First executive order, I believe. Keystone Pipeline, gone. They'll say whatever they need to say to win. They have a $1 trillion industry, which is the mainstream media, backing them. They have $1 trillion in big tech backing them. You think Kamala Harris is going to be a moderate? What about her has been moderate in anything that she's done? She's not going to take your guns, folks. Definitely not going to do it. Except you said it 10 days ago. You said it 4 days afterwards. She gets on with Oprah. I mean, I just want her to do more of these interviews because it's amazing. Like, even Oprah can't carry her through this stuff because it's like, oh, the word salads. The word salads are so good, I almost want to become like a vegan. Let's watch it. Just keep going. Keep talking. Oh, give her a mic. It's insane. But so are the policies. So everything they do, right? She's going to be a great moderate. She's so moderate, guys, that she wanted to fund, courtesy of you, the American taxpayer, transgender surgeries for illegal immigrant criminals that happen to be residing in California prisons. I don't know. I'm sort of upset that, like, our kids can't read in America. I'm slightly less concerned about illegal immigrants and their gender experience in American prisons. I mean, it's kind of funny, but, like, Jesus, it's like, it's scary too, right? It's like, these people are nuts. Just to sort of put a little emphasis on that, I guess it was yesterday. What was it, 156 Democrats? What'd they vote for? What's that? Nope, not voting. They voted in Congress to make sure that illegal immigrants that were caught as sex offenders, rapists, and pedophiles would not be deported after they served their prison sentences. Think about that. I mean, like, if you were trying to destroy America from within, if, like, let's say our biggest enemies, say China. China. I'm a Trump. We must use the proper vernacular, folks. If China, if you had sort of the proverbial Manchurian candidate in office, if China were trying to destroy America from within, and they had that power to do so, what would you do different than today's Democrat Party? Nothing. It's like hard to believe. I'm like, you don't want to deport pedophiles who are here illegally. You want to make sure we keep them, like, what good, like, what, like, I can't, like, and by the way, this isn't like some, lunatic, crazy person in California with a level 3 IQ. They're basically the same, but these are elected Democrat officials in Washington, D.C. They are in Congress. It wasn't one of them. It was 150-something of them. What on earth could they be thinking? Explain? I can't even understand the logic. The Democrats, they've literally become the party of pedophiles. I mean, they're more pro-pedophile than they would be America. They don't vote for anything pro-America. Right? If Kamala Harris was going to change something, guys, I imagine you wouldn't wait 4 years and do it. Let's not forget, she's the vice president to the most absent president in the history of America. Someone who has spent, 41? I don't want to get fact-checked, but north of 40, I know that for a fact, north of 40% of his time in office on vacation. Just so we're clear, raise your hand if you showed up to work only 60% of the time. Would you still have a job? Not a single person. Of course not. I work in a family business. I wouldn't even have a job. I'd be out so fast your head. If I missed like 1%, my father would fire me. 40%. Not even there. And let's just say that's probably a good thing for America, because when he is there, it's even worse. But, you know, because of that and, you know, the dementia, another minor detail, you'd say, you know what? The vice president in this case actually has quite a bit of power. Why don't you implement any of the things you said you're going to implement? Why didn't you start? You're going to wait magically till January 20th. Then you're going to start doing these things. Why not do it now? If you actually had an intention of doing any of these things, any one of them, why not sit down with Joe Biden and be like, you know what, these things would be really helpful to me. The American people really want to do something about this. You don't think he'd play ball? I mean, they got him to resign in disgrace in a coup. I'm sure they can get him to go along with a policy that would actually be good for America. But she has no intention of doing them. We know that. We just have to make sure everyone else understands it. So we've seen that. We had 4 years under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. The world is a worse place. Our economy is a disaster. Inflation is through the roof. Jobs are getting crushed. Our adversaries are invading their neighbors all over the place. We're in wars everywhere. Because guess what, folks? The world understands strength and they understand weakness. When we exude weakness as America, when we lead from behind, the world sees that. That's the nature of predation. I'm not saying any of these dictators are good people. I'm saying they see weakness and they're going to pounce. This is a story as old as time. I want the guy that doesn't exude weakness, that understands the economy because he's actually signed the front of a paycheck, not just the back. Not a career San Francisco liberal. Has never worked in the private sector in her life. I want the guy that took a bullet to the face and stood up defiant. You know, these days everyone's a tough guy on the internet, right? Everyone's a tough guy on a keyboard, and everyone has gotten a little too comfortable talking smack on, you know. But when they've actually tested, most people crumble. I think world leaders, the people who signed peace deals in the Middle East rather than perpetuated war and death and mayhem and destruction, I think they saw that resolve before my father ever proved it to those who may have still been in doubt. There was a reason Putin didn't invade Ukraine and his neighbors during my father's administration, but they did under, obviously, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. He did under Obama. He did under the prior Bush, because he understood what we all now know. That strength, that resolve. For me, as someone who understands my father, knows him well, known him a long time. I'm older than dirt these days, so, you know, I guess I always got that. But honestly, even knowing him as long as I have and understanding him as well as I do, that moment was still a shock to me. I was out with my daughter. That was a Saturday, the first time they tried to kill him. I was out with my daughter, and it was weird. My 17-year-old daughter, this doesn't happen often when you're a dad, right? So, like, especially once they get, like, mid-teens, it's over. Like, you get the call when they need money or something, but that's not like, and I got the call. It's like, hey, Dad, I want to go fishing. I'm like, who are you and what have you done with my daughter? But when that call happens, which is, again, not very often, you go. And so I took my daughter out fishing, and we went out. We're offshore because I live in Florida. We're just running offshore a little bit, and we're out there having a good time, doing pretty well, and get the call. Don, your father's been shot. And, like, you know, that's not like a call like it's good or bad. There's like only degrees of bad, but it goes from like really bad to really, really, really ridiculously bad. Well, we don't know. Well, we don't know. I tried calling everyone, you know. I guess the one thing that was done right that day, I guess they shut down all communications. They weren't sure if there was other stuff, IEDs or whatever, so there's no cell phone in and out. You know, obviously, I'm, you know, floored the boat. We're going as fast as we can, back in and home. Took 90 minutes to find out anything. So that's a long 90 minutes, I can assure you. And by then, I started seeing some of the clips on social media, whatever it may be. I saw them come up, but you still don't know, right? Because it's like, we're in Texas, like, you're deer hunting, you can shoot a deer perfectly, it may run 100 yards, and, it's dead, it doesn't quite know it yet. It can happen. So still don't know. Finally, we're all there. My family had sort of, by this time, we'd all sort of gathered. We're all together. We get the call. I'm on speakerphone, and Dad picks up and like, hey, I'm okay. I'm just like, that was the most badass thing I've ever seen in my life. Then we talked about it for a little bit because he was like, well, the shooter was like, 130 yards away. My dad's a golfer. He's not a shooter. He's like, that's relatively far for a golf shot. It's not really far for a shot. I came from a competitive shooting background, and he's like, well, no, that's pretty far. I was like, no, just so we're clear. Like, that's like, if that was me with 20 minutes on a roof and a high-powered rifle, that'd be like you missing a 6-inch putt. Like, it's almost impossible to miss, and that's why I also know someone else is working above. Like, so I'm explaining that to him, and it's sort of that realization is setting in a little bit. He's like, really? Like that? I was like, and I've been to, like, let's call it, I don't know. I know Trump can sometimes be prone to a little bit of hyperbole, but I think I've been to about 1 billion Trump rallies. I've literally never seen him go to a graph and point to a chart and and to have that all happen at exact moment. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who maybe don't have all that much faith, or maybe didn't have any, that see all of that play out in that split second, in that weird instance, in that unusual thing, and say, there has to be something else at play here. So, now I hope the guy that was watching out from there is also watching the Dominion machines on November 5th, but that's a minor detail. Well, we need a little bit more. Just 2 was a lot. I know we're asking for a lot here, but we're trying to save the free world. So conversation goes a little bit further, and finally I was like, it's so heavy, right? It was 90 minutes, a long time to sit there. Sort of the adrenaline dump starts hitting you. Me being my usual sort of inappropriate self, I finally had to be like, okay, listen. So, Dad, important question. He's like, okay, what is it, Don? Like, what? Okay, how's the hair? He goes, Don, the hair is fine, Don. It's a little bloody. There's a lot of blood. Don, but the hair is fine. I go, true story. I think my sister was like looking at me like, you're really an idiot, aren't you? You had to break the ice. And sort of, everyone started laughing. It actually was probably the little moment of levity I think we all needed in that instance. And I was like, so better or worse than Evander Holyfield? Where are we here on the scale of 1 to ear? So, but it was that moment. It was that instance. It was that reaction, that instinct to come back up in the face of evil, in the face of almost death, to come back and fight. And that's what America needs to do right now. That's what we all need to do right now. For the next 47 days. Let's not kid ourselves, okay? There's a reason the Democrats also put in Kamala Harris, not just because they knew Joe Biden couldn't win, but because whatever games they're going to play, whatever it is they're going to do, however it is they're going to manipulate everything, they need it to be credible. When they do their whole democracy's on the ballot, yeah, they care at all, right? We've discussed that already today. Part of their whole nonsense, their whole hoax with that is they need people to at least believe a little bit. No one was ever going to believe it with Joe Biden. If anyone knew anything about Kamala Harris, or if the media was honest about her, no one would believe she could do it. Because she can't. But we can't have a moment of apathy. We can't have a moment where we don't have the pedal to the metal. Okay? whatever call you can make, whatever, especially obviously in the swing states, but we got to remember our homes too, because it's not just about the presidential race. Just so we're clear, as someone who has done 50 hours of congressional testimony for treason, I was an agent of Russia, guys. By the way, just because it's BS doesn't mean they wouldn't still put me in jail, or actually treason is a crime punishable by death. That becomes like my average Tuesday at this point. But I get it. I'm not the upstanding citizen that Hunter Biden is. I know, I'm sorry. I'm working to improve daily. In my next life, I want to just be a Democrat. It's so much easier. Like, imagine that was my laptop. Like, I'd be in Gitmo. My father would have been the one that sent me there, but and rightfully so, but, hey, what can you do? Whatever you would do on November 6th, if you found out that Kamala Harris was president, do it now. Do it today. Do it tomorrow. Do it for the next 47 days. Whatever call it is you can make, whatever note you can send to a friend in a swing state to make sure that they're registered, to make sure that they're current, to make sure that every single vote counts. Make that call now. I know we're used to hearing it. We're at political stuff all the time. If you're in this room, you're a junkie, you're into the stuff, I get it. This race for dog catcher is the most important election in the history of I get it. We're used to hearing it. You sort of get numb to it. When you see everything that they're trying to do right now, when you hear them saying the quiet parts out loud that we've long suspected, but even they weren't dumb enough to actually articulate to the American people, they're saying them out loud right now. The party that screams about everyone they don't like is a fascist are acting awfully lot like fascists. They're trying to censor us. They're trying to jail their political opponents. As it relates to my father, if they couldn't impeach him twice, if they couldn't bankrupt him, if they couldn't take away his businesses as they've been trying, if they still haven't jailed him, but they're still trying, let's ramp up the rhetoric hard enough and long enough to get someone to try to actually kill him. If they can do that to Donald Trump, let me ask you, a guy with an incredible following, the soapbox, the platform to be able to fight back, the means to be able to do so, if they can do that to him, who can't they do it to? But if they will do it to him, and they'll do it so flagrantly and so aggressively, who's off limits? You think that, you know what, we beat Donald Trump this time, things are going to go back to normal, or you just think this becomes the new normal? I promise you guys, it's never going back to normal if these people get into power. So we have to get involved. The only thing that's going to cost us this election is going to be apathy. Okay, you see it when they try to do with the polling. They try to demoralize you. They want you to stay at home. They want you to cry. They want you to think you can't do anything about it. You can. It's harder. I say to win by 1, we got to win by 5. That's the reality. Okay? No one actually believes now, no sane person at least. Some Democrats may be fine with the results because, again, they care about democracy, but no one actually believes that Joe Biden lost 18 of 19 bellwethers. He underperformed literally everywhere except for Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, Milwaukee, where he magically also outperformed Barack Obama in 2008. No one believes that happened. That's, again, sane or rational. So we need every ounce of your energy to win, because what we're fighting for is worth it. And I came from a place where the son of a billionaire from New York City, I used to get invited to the cool person parties. Even the libs liked me. They really liked him. Doesn't matter. What we're fighting for is everything. Everything is on the table. So we need everyone engaged. We need everyone active. We need everyone fighting to save our country. And when we win, We will make sure that we leave America to our children in a way that they recognize, in a way that they can appreciate it, and in a way that our founding fathers intended. Thank you so much, Texas. I think we're coming back out in a couple seconds to do a little bit of roundtable chat. But thank you guys. You are the best. I'll be back. Yes. We're back. You can't get rid of me that quick.
Okay, while we have a few more minutes, we were going to take the opportunity to ask Don some questions, just a few questions about how things are going. And we'll start out with, we saw your dad recently on Gutfield, just on fire, right? The guy has more energy than anybody I could imagine that's covering this much ground, this much territory, every corner of the nation. The Long Island Arena, New York rally, incredible turnout. How's your dad doing? Tell us about him.
He's doing great, actually. Again, his resolve is just strengthened. He sees it, and for better or worse, this is now my third rodeo, and I'm the guy that goes on the ground. We spoke about it a little bit earlier. They're like, well, were you there with your dad? I'm like, no. If I'm, one Trump in a room is enough. The problem you see with politics, everyone wants to sort of be around him because they get to be in the picture. They get to seem like they're, credible. Then they use that picture to be like, look how close I am to Trump. Why don't you pay me $10,000 a month to, support your campaign, even if they're morons, right? And there's a lot of morons in this game. I don't spend that much time with them. I talk to them often. I get involved where it matters, and I sort of keep my head down and do what I do best elsewhere. But as the guy that's on the ground a lot, and just for October 2020, I did 104 sort of rallies like this myself. So like 4 a day, 31 days straight. So I always did probably just as much, if not more, in 16 because COVID was making it even harder. Still 4 days a lot. It's kind of. My voice at the end of that one was brutal. But the enthusiasm I see on the ground now is unlike anything I've ever seen. And it's not coming from the usual suspects. There's people that run up to me that I'm looking and I'm saying, oh boy, I'm going to get attacked or I'm going to get yelled at or they're and it's like, please win. You have to win. Because people are getting it. They're not believing their lying eyes. They're not believing, Bidenomics is working for America. I saw that myself, last summer I took my boys on a, father-son sort of fishing trip. We came back and it was my 10-year-old at the time and my 14-year-old, and we went to McDonald's and we ordered, for a 10-year-old, a 14-year-old, and me, and it was $48. And I was like, you know what? If Donald Trump Jr. has sticker shock at McDonald's, it's a problem. I'm not saying it's changing my habits, but if I'm like, damn, that's expensive, people are getting crushed. I think people recognize that. Yeah. People understand from every demographic that we are worse off now than we were 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, he sees that, he feels it, he's out there a lot, and he sees that. I mean, they literally, I think they turned away like 18,000 people in New York.
Right.
Turned away. They filled an arena, and then they turned away another 18,000. They were watching on TVs outside. In New York. Yeah. Going up the streets in Manhattan, which is, just so we're clear, Manhattan is a little bit left of this area right here.
Yeah.
Like 90 points left. And they're lining the streets cheering for him. They understand the political persecution. They understand the lies. They see that all this stuff turned out to be nonsense. It's not going to stop the Democrats from doing anything, but I think he feels that. And again, as someone who, he doesn't need this job. After 2020, he knows he could have just walked away and just, gone quietly, and they probably would have left him alone. And it's just not his style. So he feels really good about where it is right now. He's just excited to fix things because we need a lot of fixing.
Well, it's incredible how much stamina he has and the fortitude that he has to work day in and day out on behalf of this country. And it's, while Kamala schedules fake rallies with the leftist media and 15 people in a studio audience.
Yeah. I think the record is something like my father has been almost assassinated as many times as Kamala Harris has done interviews. And then, the woman that's all about woman power, then she needs to bring on her little clown sidekick, Tim Walz. I don't know. If you want to lead the free world, I think it's perfectly fine if a competent woman's doing that. I think that's wonderful. Why does she need the man sidekick on an interview? You'd think you'd be able to do one of these by yourself, but minor details.
You would think so.
Or not have Oprah as the ringleader trying to, cheer it on, but apparently not.
As he's speaking for her over her shoulder time and time again. Look, I think it's incredible that she chose who she chose, Walz, for a vice presidential candidate, as the public in the stretch of the final weeks learns more and more about both of them.
Yeah.
It's going to be very telling. Tell us about J.D. Vance.
Oh, J.D.'s great. I mean, I'm actually really looking forward to that debate as well. J.D. is a good friend of mine, became a good friend over the last few years. I think I expended about 175% of my political capital this cycle to get that to be the VP pick. Just I got to know him for a long time. It was interesting. I read his book. I read Hillbilly Elegy when it first came out, and I was like, wow, we need a guy like this in politics. Just the ultimate sort of rags to riches American dream story. It can still be done, folks. It's just not going to be done by a Kamala Harris.
That's right.
Where they just need to create permanent dependence. So we'll put you on a government program. You'll never get out of the poverty. But JD's done that. And then when it came out initially, that it was like, oh, he doesn't like Trump, and I was like, what's going on here? We sort of got introduced by some friends after that. I'm like, what? But he was the first guy to be as vocal as he was against those things when the policy started working, when this thing started being real. By the way, I get it. If you were skeptical of Trump, you mean the billionaire from New York City is going to be the savior of the conservative movement? I was like, I don't know. Good. Even I was skeptical, okay? Because my father's always like, you're a right-wing extremist, Don. I'm like, pretty conservative, but not that bad. But he was the first guy that didn't just sort of say, okay, fine. Like so many of the rhinos, fine, we'll accept Trump. I'll fundraise off of him. I'll use him to get elected, and then I'll turn on him when it. JD was like, I was wrong. He's right. Trump's right. These policies, he got there on his own and did that, and I respect that because we can change. We can change our opinions. So I got to know him really well prior to his Senate run, and that cycle I used up basically all of my political capital trying to get my father to endorse him. In that race. Then, even in the primary, I think I did pretty good because I think. The only problem with J.D. Vance as vice president is he's the #1 person we have in the United States Senate by far, so I don't love that, but I think it's such a great model for, future Republicans to emulate. And so he's been great. He's just a great friend, and on it, it's great. The first 10 days, they were as vicious to him as you could possibly imagine. I'm saying, I'm going to get a lot of heat for this. But literally every Sunday, when I watch him do all 3 of the radical leftist communist Sunday shows and just eviscerate these morons on their home turf, I'm like, yep, I was right. And the billionaire powers that be and the rhino power brokers and some of the rhinos that control conservative media that were all I'm like, I was right. They weren't even close. This is like, he's been incredible. So I'm super psyched to have him on the take. I'm also psyched to have someone of his ability, talent, and youth. He's younger than me. On the ticket, because it means that maybe for the first time I actually feel a little confident that we have a bench that can carry sort of America first beyond today.
That's exactly right. And speaking of developing a bench, we're here at the Texas Youth Summit, and our first time and young voters, I don't think they really realize for the conservative movement and for the re-election of the president how important they are. Speak to them on how important it is for them to engage, work, and become future office holders.
100%. And you guys are the future. You guys, by the way, you're also the rebels. To the young conservatives in the crowd, you're the guys that are like going against the machine. Like I can assure you, like the left, they sort of claim this, we're different and we're unique and we're great. Like, no. Like if you're siding with corporate media, each and every one of your professors, Hollywood pedophile billionaires, like you're not anything unique. Like you guys have guts to actually do this. And I think anyone in this room who's maybe a little older than the youngest generation knows that I'm not just saying this because well, now's the time I'm going to try to reach out to young guys. I've been speaking, I think this is my 4th year at Texas Youth Summit. I think I was the first guy, I picked up Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA when he was 21, and I literally, a good friend of mine, 2 guys from Texas actually introduced me to Charlie. You got to meet this guy. He knows everything about politics. I'm like, oh, give me some details. Well, he's 21. I'm like, wait, what? Guys, we already don't know anything. Like the biggest joke I had in the campaign was when they started Russia collusion. I'm like, we know so little about politics at this stage. We couldn't collude to order a cheeseburger. But then I took the time and I sat down with him because I believed in that youth and that movement. And I was like, now he's out there registering people in Arizona and Wisconsin. What Christian here is doing in Texas, it's incredible. And guess what? The biggest gains we've made in any demographic. We're winning, especially young males.
Right.
We're winning Gen Z. Who had that on their bingo card?
Exactly.
Because you guys want to be able to have a job. Most of you probably want to move out of your parents' house eventually. You want to be able to buy your own home. That's not going to happen in the Democrat Party. It's not going to happen with the policies that jacked up prices, that created inflation, that raised interest rates. It's hard for me to live in a home, and I'm a reasonably spoiled individual. So, the youth is everything, and you guys are absolutely crushing it out there. So when I see, I saw it this summer, right? The frat boys saving the American flag from hitting the ground as Palestinian pro-terrorist rioters.
Right.
As a former frat boy myself, many have called me a Chad. I'll take it. It's a great compliment. I didn't have us saving the Republic. It's we like to chug beers and be a little wild. In my day, definitely did a little bit of that myself. I didn't have that, but those guys are stepping up. They're great patriots, and so it's an honor to see those guys coming up because that's the future of our country. If we can get them. More importantly, if we can get them after 20 years of leftist indoctrination from kindergarten on, from every teacher, from every, I used to speak in college campuses starting in 15 and 16. All right, my first question, hey, if your teachers knew you're here, raise your hand if you think you'd be penalized academically. Every hand in the room went up. Yeah. But they were there, and they're still in it. And that's everything. To be able to get through that much indoctrination, I just couldn't be more proud of you guys. So thank you so much for doing it. It's an honor to be in the fight with you.
I'm thinking of additional questions. I know we're going to wrap this up and make sure you can stay on time.
We don't care. If we want, we can go a little longer. It's fine.
All right.
Are you guys bored yet? Are we losing people? No?
Yeah.
Have we lost a single person yet? All right, good.
And I wanted to ask about the border. I'm thinking of these questions as they come to my mind because I'm not wearing earrings that feed them to me, right? If you know what I mean, right? But tell us, as high as border security and national security polls with all Americans, regardless of their political stripes or background, Our media push down the stretch is really going to expose Kamala in incredible ways for what they have been miserable failures on that's put us all at risk. Speak to that and how we have a strategy going forward to make sure everyone knows it.
It's so critical. What's interesting now, I mean, again, Americans are not believing the media anymore. They're believing what they see each and every day. There's actually a majority of Americans now are for mass deportations because they see the crime, they see the fentanyl, the sex trafficking. It's real. They can't hide from it. Just like, they're trying to pretend, when Kamala Harris imported 5% of Haiti to America and dumped it only into small red towns. You saw what's going on in Springfield. They're not eating cats, which means we're like 2 weeks from eating, they're 2 weeks from like, well, they're eating cats, but you're racist if you think that's bad. It's really happening. I mean, they put 20,000 people into a town of 50,000, 60,000. What do you think's going to happen? So that stuff is happening. Turns out it's happening. But beyond that, those people get free services. They get free health. You and I, we pay insurance premiums. Of course. We pay a deductible. Many of our deductibles are so high, you basically don't even have insurance. Mm-hmm. You have co-pays. You have to be in network, otherwise, you're extra screwed. The illegals, they can go to any hospital in America. They just go in right there, and you get to pay for that too. So then your premiums go up higher because you're paying for other people. And then they say, we're going to give them all driver's licenses. And maybe they grew up in a culture that didn't exactly drive, so they're not so good at it, maybe. Right. And so they're getting into accidents, and they're running into school buses, and they're killing American kids. But then what happens is you're in that town, and you have your truck, and you go to work. Well, now you're in a problem area. So now your car insurance goes up. You didn't get a speeding ticket. You didn't get into an accident. You certainly didn't run over and kill children. You did everything perfectly. But you're paying for the ill actions of others. It's not sustainable anymore. So the border's number one. I heard this the other day. Kamala Harris, she's going to build the wall down. I'm like, she'll put on a MAGA hat like Joe Biden did. Yeah. I think it's Joe Biden finally figured out that she really took him out. He finally figured it out. I think he's probably dislikes her more than most Americans at this point. But now she's going to build a wall. Like, well, why didn't you do that the last time? We bought the materials, we paid for the labor, we did everything. Now we spend like, what, $230 billion a year? A year, not just a one-time payment to build a wall, which was like another $5 billion. But we pay $200 a year to support people who are likely never support themselves. But they'll be reliable Democrat voters. Mm-hmm. Because they've ostracized so many people in the Hispanic community, so many people in the African American community with the failed Democrat policies. They say, you know what, rather than fix those policies and do what's good for Americans, we're just going to import more voters. Right. You see it in Texas. I spoke with Ken Paxton a couple weeks ago. He's like, they're giving them licenses and IDs, and then there's a booth outside where they are registering to vote. Even if they can't do it, it's like, you didn't know. We won't prosecute you, but like maybe you show up to vote. They're doing that in Texas. That's why there can be no apathy. They're not going to do anything about the border. They need those dependents because otherwise you'd never be standing up to vote for Democrat. Did they cut us off?
Maybe so. I'll trade you.
Is that like the hook? Yeah. So I think we all just have to be aware, of what's going on. We have to see that. We cannot fall for the lies that the media will tell us, and like all the other lies. But again, I think people are there. So. I'm really excited about it. I feel like we're better positioned now than we ever have been, let's call it 6 weeks out from an election, but that doesn't mean we can have that apathy. We have to go all in, as I was talking earlier.
Well, your father's plans when he gets back in to drain the swamp, it's something that most Americans are very keyed in on and supportive of, and so I was wondering, would he ask Elon Musk to help him with that commission?
Well, he did. He had that conversation, and Elon did that. Yep. And, Elon has, I'd say he's one of the Einsteins, let's call it, of our era. And, I'm not saying we even agree. I'm not saying he's even said he's a Democrat, but he believes in free speech. He believes in so many of these things. I think he's sort of been red-pilled by the insanity of today's Democrat Party. RFK Jr., I was involved heavily in, getting that endorsement over. And I've spoken to the guy heavily over the last time. And, I'm like, wow, like a guy like that in the FDA or HHS. But think about it. Like, Elon cut 80% of Twitter's workforce, and it got better. I think we can do the same with government. I think we can do the same with government, and we should. But more importantly, as it relates to draining the swamp, it was interesting. Perhaps the one disadvantage of coming in as an outsider back in 2016 was you didn't know. I think my father had spent like a cumulative 2 days in Washington, D.C. in his entire life. You're like, oh, he's a Republican. He must be on our side. He understands, like, he works for me. No, they work for whoever's paying them or whatever board they may end up on. Now we know, and that's why, sort of the uni party, both the Republican rhinos and the Democrat Party are so against my father. I mean, think about it. Like, we live in a time where the Democrats are embracing with glee the Dick Cheney endorsement. I mean, think about it. Like, the guy that they said was a war criminal for the last 30 years. They're like, he's on our side. This is great. I was like, I will take RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and Elon Musk over Dick and Liz Cheney any day. So that's happening, but now we have that knowledge. We know who are the snakes. We know who are the liars. We know who are the phonies. And that's what scares them the most, because they know those people aren't going to get those positions of power. They're going to be kept out. I'm going to be on the I told my father, he was like, is there anything you'd want to do? I was like, yeah. I just want a veto right. I don't even want to choose a person for a position. I just want to block the bad guys, because there's too many of them.
Wouldn't that be fun?
And I'm going to be on, my brother and I, we're going to be on the transition committee, and I'm going to make damn sure that not a single one of those clowns gets into a position of power.
Wow. For America to be able to watch you and Eric do that we would get a lot of satisfaction out of that. I can tell you that.
I will get so much satisfaction. There will never have been so much satisfaction. The Rolling Stones will sing a song about not being able to get enough satisfaction from that one. So yeah, 100%, guys.
Last question. Can your daughter beat your father at golf?
Ooh, I may have to put on my politician's hat on this one. Yeah, no, as I was saying, my daughter, I don't know if some of you guys maybe saw her speak at the RNC.
Incredible, yeah.
So,
and her comments about playing golf with her grandfather.
Oh, really, yeah, no, you don't get a pass just because you're the granddaughter, right? My father,
we got that.
She's going to get the same treatment as Hillary Clinton if they're not on the same team. Okay, it's that's true. But she was the one that was with me. I told the story about being out on the boat fishing with her and stuff, and I'd never put my daughter in the crosshairs, right? It's just different for me. Like, I'm not going to get the Hunter Biden treatment, You can't talk about Hunter. He's a child of the president. I'm like, he's 52, like, and a crackhead. Like, I'm like, no. Like, you get no hall pass from me. That doesn't absolve you from being a scumbag. It doesn't absolve you from making tens, hundreds, millions of dollars off your father's public office. And so, I know my 17-year-old daughter would not get that same treatment, as evidenced by the, bat crap crazy reaction of the ladies on The View the next day. So they were like, that was a political stunt by Don Jr. No, it wasn't. Like, she's probably spent more time with my father than any Trump because of golf, and she's competitive, and she's just signed with University of Miami. She's only a junior, but she's good enough that they sort of signed her on early. Right. You trying to get me to go? All right. Christian's trying to cut me off, but I'll finish the story. I've never got the hook before, Christian. Wow. I blame Christian Collins, okay? Yeah. You're going to have a revolt on your hands here, Christian. Okay. I'm just kidding. He's the best.
He is.
But, so my father got shot on Saturday. The Monday, 2 days later, was the start of the RNC, and I was speaking on Wednesday. And I got a call at like 7 in the morning. I think my daughter's going off to school. It's like, Dad, I want to speak at the RNC. And I think if she came from the People's Republic of New York, so I was like, maybe she's not all that conservative, but, honestly, it wasn't even about politics. She's just so close to him, and she's like, I'm sick of this crap. I've had enough. I want to speak at the RNC. I'm like, well, Kylie, you mean you want your first speech ever? No, honestly, when I was really impressed. I was like, wow, I give you credit for having we'll say, cojones. when I was 17, like I'd get nervous. I don't have a problem with the mic these days, but at 17, I'd get nervous standing up in front of my class and trying to, give a speech. Yeah, I don't care. I want to do it. Okay, we'll just go bump some governor for you, Kai. Like, this has kind of been baked for a little while. Let me figure this out. I'll call you back. So, I called my father, and he sort of had a similar reaction initially. He goes, really? Like, that's kind of a big one. And he just thought about it for a second. He was just like, you know what? That kid's a winner. Just let her do it. She'll be great. And she was. And so he understands that she's got that same sort of spirit that he has. And so, in golf, let's say it's going to be close. It's going to be close. I won't go further than that because I value my job. I'd like to be able to be seated at the family table at Thanksgiving and Christmas, but it'd be close. But no, like that was it was an awesome moment for me as a dad. Honestly the love and the amount of people that have commented to me on that one, in the months since, but it was also the most nervous I've ever been on a stage, and I didn't even have the mic. I'm like, please, just, oh God, just don't. But so it was both a horrifying dad moment and an incredibly proud dad moment. But, again, it's that resolve. We need a lot more of that. We need a lot more of those guts to stand up for America. So it was pretty special and amazing.
Well, just to wrap up, she certainly grabbed all of our hearts in that speech, and talking about her grandfather and her family, it meant so much to hear that from her, and to hear you talk about her, the way that you all talk about each other. It just shows how blessed we are to have the Trump family working so hard for the future of this country. So with that, I see we have Rafael Cruz on the front row here, which is Texas political royalty, and I'm such a huge fan of yours, Rafael. We've got from our United States Senator Ted Cruz that we are working so hard along with the effort to get your father reelected. We're working hard to get Senator Cruz reelected as well. And Senator Cruz sent a gift tonight to you, and so I'm going to hand you a pair of handmade boots from Pines Boot Company in Fort Worth, Texas. And I'd like you to open them and tell the audience what it says on the boots.
Oh, look at this. Oh, I love it. Trump, take America back, 2024, baby. Oh, thank you, guys. And yeah, we do have to get, to talk about Ted for a second, just because it is so important. We became pretty good friends, and that was a rough time early in 16.
Right.
And shortly after, sort of, we clinched the nomination. It was a little bit, I get it. Trust me, like no one understands that. And, I may or may not have some vindictive genes. But Tommy Hicks, who was RNC co-chair, great Texan, really good friend of mine, he invited me to sort of one of these DC rubber chicken, mostly rhino dinners.
Right.
Ray Washburn, another great Texan, good friend of mine, was there. And they're like, come sit at the table. It was AEI, whatever, one of these.
Right.
And I go there and I sit down, and everyone sort of looks really uncomfortable. And I'm like, I haven't noticed yet the name next to me. And they put me next to Ted Cruz. This is 6 weeks, 6 weeks after the primary. I'm like, oh, God, this is going to be, and we sit down, and it was a little awkward at first. And then we started talking, very cordial, great. Dinner wraps up. And, I was like, hey, we're going back at the time of the Trump Hotel in D.C. They're like, hey, Ted, you want to come back? We're going to, go have some drinks at the Trump Hotel. Have a good... And he came.
Yeah.
And he hung out with us, and we actually had a great time. Then he worked very hard for us. He was just he was a great, as a senator in the administration. And we became good friends. So this sort of terrible way things started turned into a great relationship.
Right.
And then, you had that Beto race. I was telling you before we got on the stage, and it was like, hey, Don, can you guys come down and help out? I was like, how can it be tight? I mean, this guy's an idiot. But it doesn't matter. And so I was with Ted, and we did like 4 events one day, and they got the reporting numbers, I guess, for the month or for the quarter or whatever it is. And Ted goes, we got great news. We literally raised the most money of any politician in Texas state history ever, and and I was like, well, so what was it? It was like $12.5 million. Like, wow, it seems like a lot of money in a Senate race. That's a great quote.
And
well
it
done,
was.
So we're all kind of euphoric. We go give another speech somewhere else, and I'm speaking, Ted's speaking. We're getting a good time. We get back on the bus, and the numbers for Beto O'Rourke come in. None from Texas, but it was like $37 million. I'm like, all of that, again, from out of state. So.
George
Hollywood,
Soros,
everything. And so, it just solidified, like, hey, we got to get in there. I got on the phone with my dad. It's like, hey, you got to get down there. They had that incredible rally, I think, right, in Houston, I think it was, and made that happen. And then I see polling that I don't necessarily believe. I believe it's designed to be demoralizing, but, it's within a point for, in Texas or Texas. I mean, it can't be. But, we have to 100% do it. We have to be involved. I don't want to win the presidency without the Senate and the House, guys. I've been there. I've done my 50 hours of congressional testimony. Yeah. We got to win everything down to dog catcher. We got to win our state legislatures. We got to win our school boards. So get involved in that. Again, I don't want to just win the it's not about, okay, get Donald Trump in there. Donald Trump without the Senate, without the House, will have another 4 years of impeachment inquiries, Russia to the 12th, whatever it may be. So we have to get in there, across the board. So thank you so much, guys. Make sure you do that. Let's make sure we keep Ted in the Senate.
We're going to get it done.
And keep fighting.
We're going to get it done. Let's give Don Jr. a round of applause.
Thank you again, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. I got it. I'm not Joe Biden. Great night.
Appreciate all of you. Thank you. Have a great night.
Oh, these are awesome, man. Thank you.
Corey Mills, Congressman, want to thank you for joining us.
We're supposed to be a nation of freedoms, of rights, of liberties, and that includes medical rights as well.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
It's time to show the American people we stand with parents, not educational bureaucrats who want to restrict our understanding and visibility of the issues. These parents are not to be labeled as domestic terrorists. They are proud parents who want their children to succeed and not to be indoctrinated.
How we doing? I know it's late, so I know that you guys are ready to go. There's probably some after gathering, I'm sure. Look, unlike Kamala Harris, I didn't come from a middle class family with beautiful lawns, but I did actually come from a family that had a lot of issues. Like many of you guys, I came from a broken home where both my mom and dad had drug and substance abuse issues. And I bounced house to house until I was about 9 years old when my grandparents finally took me in and adopted me. And my dad had spent 32 years in prison. My mom had spent 7.5 years in prison. You know, we were that family that it was cheaper for us to go buy a $100 deep freeze and put it in our carport and go hunt and fish and be able to fill it ourselves than to be able to go to the local store. And I think everybody feels that right now with Biden economics and the actual cost of living and inflation under this administration, correct? But after that, I ended up being able to do something great, which was, one, to serve in the United States military. I'm a proud combat veteran from the 82nd Airborne Division. Thank you. And between my government and military time, I had spent almost 7 years in Iraq. I spent 3 years in Afghanistan, Kosovo, Pakistan, North Somalia, all the areas I know you're all rushing out for vacation, right? But the thing is that after my military service, I feel like everyone is born with that servant leadership heart. It's not something you learn. You either want to go out and do something for others or you don't. And there was still this draw, this pull. And even when I went over to the private sector, we had created jobs in our state of Florida, which I'll tell you, Texas and Florida are probably the last two remaining great states that actually believe in freedom. But even when I created my business, it was about serving our first responders, serving our military, serving our law enforcement. You know, I grew up in a family, and I know that the conservatives understand that we believe in defending our men and women in blue, not defunding our men and women in blue. Am I right? But even after doing this, I was blessed, and I was able to get pulled into the Trump administration as a SecDef advisor, looking at geopolitics and things like that, and an amazing guy named Chris Miller. And then moving on to then run for Congress in Florida's 7th District. And the reason I tell that story is because I think that everyone needs to understand that your socioeconomic background, what you're born into, doesn't define you as Americans. You know, we believe in equal opportunity, not equal outcome. That is the difference between equality and equity. We believe in the military that we don't need diversity, equity, inclusion. We need increased lethality, readiness, and being properly equipped. There we go. I hear, is that a Marine over there I heard? There we go, I heard one. But what I want to talk to you about tonight really quickly is courage is contagious. And when you hear the story, you're going to originally think that I'm talking about myself in this, but then you'll get to the crux of who really was that courageous person. You know, our team and I in 2021 had conducted the very first successful overland rescue of Americans out of Afghanistan for a mother and her 3 children who were born in Amarillo, Texas, right there in Ronnie Jackson's district. And then I thought that even after this administration had saw what this botched withdrawal in Afghanistan had cost 13 brave heroes and 13 new Gold Star families their new lives. And they thought, well, they're going to do the right thing if this ever occurs again. Fast forward to October 7th of 2023, when one of the most barbaric and horrendous incidents took place, taking the lives of over 1,200, not just Israelis, but Americans, Germans, and people from other nations. The barbarism that took place by Hamas, this terrorist organization, and I won't define it as anything other than a terrorist organization, to murder, to rape, to behead, to enslave, was some of the worst things that we've ever seen. I remember on October 10th, we were sitting on the floor voting, and I looked at one of my best friends in all of Congress, Byron Donalds, and I said, Byron, you know, I can't just sit here and do nothing. Americans, they deserve the right for their government to not be politicians who say, I would have, or I could have, I should have, but to actually take action and be a statesman and be a representative. And I remember I jumped on a plane, immediately called 2 of my guys who were former squadron and former SOF guys, and said, look, meet me in Jordan. You see, from the 7+ years of vacationing out in Iraq, we basically were able to learn Arabic and other language skills that enabled us to be able to go on to make those applicable in what took place. And when I got into Jordan, I remember I went right to the border, and the guys were going to be a couple hours behind me, but we knew that there was 5 bridges throughout Israel that crosses the Jordan River. And in this, you have the Sheikh Hussein Bridge, the King Hussein Bridge, you know, they don't have a lot of originality, the Al-Arabi Bridge, and it kind of goes on and goes on. And I told the team, look, I know you're 2 hours behind me, but the bridge is supposed to close at dusk, so we got to get over there because I got to get the first people out. We had gathered 32 Americans at this point between Tiberias and Nazareth and Haifa. And these were key areas in the north because that was right across where the Sea of Galilee and the Golan Heights were, where Hezbollah had already started launching anti-tank missiles. And so I remember we get to the bridge, and I'd been coordinating with one of our teams on the other side, and I said, hey, look, guys, meet me at Sheikh Hussein Bridge. We're going to go across, hit Tiberias, then Nazareth, then Haifa, then we're going to pull out. And as I get to this other side of the bridge, and it's just me, a backpack with some goodies in it, and a couple of comms. So I text the guys, and I'm like, hey, I'm across the bridge. Give me your PID, which is positive ID. They sent me a photo of the vehicle, and they said, all right, here's where we're at. Come get us. I'm looking around. I'm going, God, I know I'm getting old and my vision's not great, but there's no way I'm not seeing this vehicle. I texted the guys once more. I said, hey, look, where are you at exactly? Because I don't see you. I said, look, if I come across the Sheikh Hussein Bridge, where are you? He goes, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. As soon as you get across the King Hussein Bridge, and it's almost one of those moments where you look at your phone and you read it like 3-4 times. All right, haha, military humor, you're joking with me, you're not at the wrong bridge. So it's the JK LOL emoji, smiley face, like moment. And when I realized that they're actually at a bridge that's an hour-and-a-half drive away, I had a moment where I had to say, all right, what do we do now? I think we all hit those crossroads in our lives at multiple periods. But this is one of those moments where you say, well, my guys are about 2 hours behind me. Maybe we don't get out there today, but tomorrow we'll come back, we'll have a better plan, we'll go in, we'll be able to execute this. But then you have that other fork in the road that says, a lot of those people may not have it tomorrow. What about their tomorrow? Doesn't that matter? I remember I was looking and there was a bunch of taxi cabs out there. And you're kind of finding the one that is the least shady of all the taxi cab drivers. You know, the guy who's like just watching you and eyeballing you the whole time. You're like, yeah, not that guy. And then you kind of move on a little bit further and you're like, well, that person doesn't look very responsible. And I saw this guy who was just sitting on his phone. I don't know if he's playing Angry Birds or what the heck he's doing. And I'm like, you know, he looks the least harm. Like, I think I could take this guy, you know, if it really came down to it. And so I get up there and I'm thinking, well, I speak Arabic, and a lot of people in Israel speak Arabic and Hebrew. So as I'm getting there, I go and I start speaking Arabic, and I find out very quickly that this guy speaks about that much Arabic, I speak about that much Hebrew, and we're going to have about that much conversation. And as we're doing this, and by the way, if you ever have family game night, I can assure you, I am the gold medalist of Pictionary. I am that guy who's going, 3 words, look at me, drive this way, turn that down. I'm not in the back, I'm right here, go that way. You're doing so great, thank you. I am your Pictionary king, should you ever need me on family game night. And I remember I text the guys, and I said, hey, look, I'm going anyway. Meet me in Nazareth. I'll hit Tiberias on my own. And as we're going down, you know, obviously you're watching, all right, is this guy making the right turns? Is he not making the right turns? Because I don't look good in an orange jumpsuit, and I certainly don't want to have some of the results that happened before. And so as we're continuing to move on, we get to the location, I pull up, and I walk into this hotel. And you can see this desperation in the face of so many who are literally sitting in the lobby next to this little cafe. A lot of them have been sleeping in the lobby because they didn't have any more money. Flights were all canceled. You had no comm air whatsoever. And you had this lottery system where if you went onto the State Department website and you applied, then you might get picked, and then you have to find your own way over to Jerusalem or to Tel Aviv. And then you have to sign, and I kid you not, you had to sign a promissory note to the United States government that I will repay whatever the cost is for you to get me out of here. Repay. You know, I believe in the idea that when we pay our taxes, that one of the things we talk about is the take care clause, which is the responsibility of government to ensure the protection and safety of all Americans. That's the same thing of why our borders need to be closed, right? It's to keep Americans safe. But as I get there, I go in there and I can see everyone's got their luggages, their rollers, everything. And I walk in and I said, all right, listen, my name's Congressman Corey Mills. I know I had talked to a lot of you about the idea of being here, having a couple of armored vehicles, some security guys, and we're going to be moving on. But it's me, and I got a couple of taxi cabs outside. And you literally see this young lady, and this is where courage is contagious. This young lady named Silver Prout, who I didn't know her from Adam, and she had worked in Senator Murkowski's office previously, was sitting in this little round back swivel chair. I remember she stood up and she said, I know who you are, I know what you did in Afghanistan, and if you tell me it's safe, I'll go with you. You know, one strong, bold footstep by any man or woman can set the path for others. Because as soon as you see one person stand up, all of a sudden it was, I'll go. I'll go. I'll go. See, that courage that she displayed was contagious and gave others confidence. You know, this is the same courage, by the way, that we all have to continue to exemplify when we're trying to be silenced, we're trying to be canceled, when we're being told that being pro-life or to basically be an individual who believes in conservative constitutional values, that we should be silenced, we should be put to sleep, we should basically be, eliminated. That's the message that's being put out there. But we have to rise above this, the way this young lady did. And I'll tell you, by the time we got to Nazareth, our team had already gotten there, gathered, gotten in the trucks, gotten into Haifa, pulled people in. And on October 11th, only days after the incident that happened on October 7th, that was the first 32 Americans that we pulled across and saved from Israel. And then the next day through the West Bank and to Jerusalem and others, we pulled another 45, then another 10, then another, and we got done. Between our ground and air operations, we had rescued 255 Americans before Joe Biden finished eating ice cream, smelling children, and sent the first plane. That's the realities. And I'd love to tell you that that was the only time that was necessary. We'd already done Afghanistan in 2021. We'd already done Israel in 2023. And then you feel like that infomercial where you kind of pause and go, but wait, there's more. You fast forward to 2024 in Haiti. You have Jimmy Chauvier, the GS9 gangs, and others who are actually just going through turmoil, going after and targeting missionaries, targeting orphanages. And once again, you wait to see whether or not this administration is going to do their job to protect Americans. We've already embarrassed them twice. I used to have this little catchphrase where I'd say, if Biden's unwilling to do his job, then I'll go do it for him. That's the mindset we all need to have as Americans. You don't need to be an elected official to demonstrate the courage necessary for us to be able to go forward and save this republic. And I will make it clear. We are a republic, as Article 4, Section 4 states, not a democracy, which is mob rule as opposed to rule of law. But spokesperson Miller for the State Department came forward and made a comment, and he says, we have no plans or intent on rescuing Americans trapped in Haiti. No plans or intent. We warned them it was a level 4 country. These are individuals who went there on missionary trips to orphanages to help people after the devastating earthquakes and other effects. And once again, it's like, let's get the gang back together, guys. We pull everyone together, and we knew that all the runways were already closed in Port-au-Prince and Cap Haitien. So we got a friend who had a helicopter and allowed us to be able to island hop until we were able to get in to the Dominican Republic and Puerto Plata, overnight there, then rebalance, and and before it was all said and done, we had already pulled out 23 Americans, continuing to message, continuing to stay loud, continue to not be silenced. And all of a sudden, what did you see? You saw this administration open up Cap Haitien and start allowing planes to come in. What I've learned is that you can shame elected officials into doing what is right. And I will tell you, while I've been a registered Republican my entire life, I identify as a constitutional conservative. We have to bear in mind that it's not just the Democrats who have left and abandoned us at times, but the Republicans or those who claim to be Republicans as well. And we see that in our voting. I'm a simple 7 Article 27 Amendment constitutionalist. I believe in standing for what is right, and I believe so much in standing for what is right that I understand that personal enrichment and public service are mutually exclusive. You can't serve the people and serve yourself. And that is why I have pledged and I have continued and I co-sponsored to ban stock trading for all elected officials, their spouses. You shouldn't buy, sell, and trade stocks that you can manipulate through legislation. And let's take it a step further. I'm the only member of Congress out of 535 members, when you think about the House and the Senate, who donates my salary back to a woman, child, veteran charity in my district, because this is about serving the people, not serving my own interests. Now, I'm blessed to be able to sit on the Armed Services Committee and to serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee. And I'll tell you that one of my top priorities when it came to the military was to eliminate things like DEI that's been destructive and divisive and leading to a 40,000 recruitment deficit in our military. Not to mention that you have 8,600 who I will tell you, in my personal opinion, was unconstitutionally purged as a result of their denial of their medical and their religious freedoms on the vaccines. And I believe that they should not only be allowed, should they determine that they would like to come back to the military, but with full benefits, back pay, and the opportunity to serve their country, not serve a political agenda. I will tell you, as a father of a 9-year-old boy, that whether it is CRT, which is indoctrinating our children, our youth, whether it's DEI, which is being divisive and driving down recruitment in our military, or whether it's ESG, which are the forced mandates for wokeism in the corporations, America doesn't need CRT, DEI, and ESG. What we need is GOD back in our communities and back in our lives. Right? I think we can give a good amen on that one, right? And I can tell you that where that starts is with you. For too long, even the Republican Party hadn't prioritized the significant role that our youth plays into things. But you're the most at risk with the decisions that we make in government. You're the ones who are going to have to live with the consequences of the decisions that go forward. And I acknowledge that. And I acknowledge it so much so that when I talk about courage is contagious, it also means that you sometimes have to go against your own party when you know the decision is wrong. Things like the AUMF, this authorized use of military force, which is carte blanche warfare, direct abdication of our constitutional duties under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 through 13. I can tell you that I care less about the borders of Ukraine 9,000 miles away. I care more about the borders 900 miles away that need to be secured to protect Americans. No more angel families, no more fentanyl trafficking, no more human and sex trafficking going on. This is a humanitarian, a medical, and a national crisis. And so we go forward, and maybe there's 27 of us, maybe there's 30 of us. On a good day, maybe there's 50 of us in total who will vote things that are constitutional and physically responsible. And I have never minded being on that side of things. And I can tell you that the leadership on both sides and the others who have been there will try to play these little games with you. They'll come to you and go, well, what can we do to get you to a yes? How much money do you need for your reelection? What committees do you want to be on? You know, they figured out real quick that I can tell you right now that every one of my votes as one of the most constitutionally conservative members of Congress are about promoting and keeping and restoring America's voice, not continuing and promoting DC's greed and corruption. And that's where we all have to be. And we just saw that this week with that continuing resolution nonsense, that they were trying to drive up more debt, being more irresponsible. And I told them that enough's enough. I've never voted on continuing resolution, a minibus, omnibus, hell, a short bus at this point. I don't know what they want to call them. But I can tell you that we have to understand that at $36 trillion in deficit, this is the first time in America's history that this year we'll spend more on interest payments to service our debts than we will our entire national defense annual spending. We are roughly now at the point where the first time in the world's history, America joins a very dangerous group of empires and nations that only about 28 have ever done, which is exceeding 130% GDP expenditure. How many people are business owners in here? Just raise your hand if you will. It's a simple formula for business owners. Your account receivables have to exceed your account payables, or you're insolvent as a business. It's no different than your GDP to national debt ratio. But what's happening here is that America is spending us into an oblivion that they can't get us out of without economic growth, without deregulation. And I believe in the idea that the private sector should drive policy, not policy that drives our private sector. I believe in deregulating things to allow our companies and our businesses to thrive. I believe in allowing Americans to have more rights, more freedoms, more liberties. I believe in our 10th Amendment, one of our most strongest amendment, which is the one that allows state and individual rights. One that's been disenfranchised since 1913 in the 17th Amendment, which took away, and a lot of people don't know this, but our U.S. senators used to be elected by our state legislators, not by we the people. But you had great politicians who would say, well, why should a politician elect a politician? When you hear it, you have to actually go, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But what you don't realize is that was put in place as a checks and balance on the federal and state power and greed. The minute the 17th Amendment passed, you saw this hockey stick-like trajectory of growth of bureaus, agencies, departments, the same ones that, like the Department of Injustice, is utilizing lawfare to target conservatives. The same one, like the IRS, who in 2004 under the Obama administration started targeting conservative organizations. The same one who continues to promote things like FISA, which is actually admitted to the FBI, said we spied on 287,000 Americans. And you had Republicans wanting to reauthorize that. But once again, there was about 20 to 30 of us who rose and said, nope, we're not going to have that anymore. We're not going to have irresponsible spending. We're not going to have overregulation. We're not going to have open borders. We're not going to continue these endless wars that actually do nothing for America. We're not going to continue to implement all these indoctrination strategies that are poisoning our youth. And we're not going to allow someone to be criticized simply because they believe in the Almighty. That's where we have to be. And it's up to us who have been the silent majority. And I'll tell you, our nation did not get this way overnight. And so it's up to us in this room to no longer be the silent majority, to no longer allow ourselves to be canceled or to be silenced, but to be loud and to make the noise necessary so all the world can hear that America is still the shining beacon on the hill, that America is still the last hope for true freedom, liberty, and prosperity. And the only way we do that is to come together. And so I ask everyone in this room, if you care about eliminating CRT from our educational system and getting back to reading, writing, and arithmetic, if you believe in our military being able to serve our country and not serving political agendas, if you believe in corporations being able to rise up and not be overregulated by federal government, or the idea that you can believe in God without persecution and criminality, that you can do what is right as a conservative and not have lawfare utilized against you, then I can tell you that to secure our borders and to stop these endless wars, you have to be loud, you have to get out there, and you have to lean forward into this fight. You have to be like President Trump, who said, fight, 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 and that's where we have to be. So I'll tell you, I thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, to speak with you, to get you guys to understand a little bit about me. But I'll tell you right now, it is up to you, the youth, to get out there and to make your voices heard. So let's not be the silent majority any longer. Let's get out there, let's fight, and let's save this republic. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless the United States. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much. It's been awesome to have you here tonight. My encouragement to you is to be back here bright and early. Doors open at 7. We are starting at 8 a.m. We'd be so honored to have you participate in our amazing panels, our panels tomorrow. How to rise in politics. If any of you want to run for office, or if any of you want to work in politics in any way, and maybe that's not your thing, but if you want to be involved in politics, we have Aaron Reitz, Ted Cruz's chief of staff here. Really great guy. Glenn McKay, who works with the Club for Growth Foundation. We have Jillian Anderson, who's like this comms guru who's on Fox News all the time. They're going to talk about how you can rise in politics, which is super cool. We also have really great people that are talking about reforming the state legislature. I could go on and on and on, but Dr. Tom Alverson, Steve Toth, Brian Harrison, some really great guys who are talking about moving the Overton window in the state legislature to the right. And we have an amazing pro-life panel with Lily Kate and Jonathan Sines. You won't want to miss this. It's going to be awesome. Taking Back Harris County. That's a great panel with Sidney Siegel, a couple of others, Kenny Webster, great friends of mine. So they're going to talk about that. It's going to be a great, great morning. So I would hope that all of you are here for those panels. And we're going to have some amazing speakers tomorrow. You won't want to miss it. We're going to send you some text to remind you. If you would, if everyone here would, if our team, maybe they weren't prepared to do this, but if everyone that's on our Texas Youth Summit team, if you would just come up here real quick And if we could just acknowledge you, I want to acknowledge some of the people who have helped us put this together. So maybe Texas Youth Summit organizing team, I didn't tell them that I was going to do this, so this is probably my fault. But while they're coming up here, if they're able to come up here, I also want to have you do one other thing. If you would, if you're on Instagram, would you follow Texas Youth Summit? On Instagram, follow Texas Youth Summit. So follow and support us in what we're doing. It's really a great thing to stay in touch with us on social media. So follow us on Texas Youth Summit. And we have one person, Jordan. Anybody else coming, Bethany or Elizabeth? Okay. Okay, well, maybe we'll do this tomorrow. But Jordan did such a great job. Jordan, raise your hand. She worked with all of our sponsors. So Jordan, thank you very much. And thank you, Bethany, who worked with our Patriots dinner. Thank you, Elizabeth, who worked with all of our group there. We have some other amazing people who've done a great job tonight. Leah, who's running the back. Katarina is working with media. Just these are volunteers who spend their time doing great work. And Abby, who's over all of our volunteer work. Bethany Riley, who she's done an amazing job. All these people are incredible people who I'm so grateful for. Sage Gable, his dad is doing the security. He's the constable here, Constable Ryan Gable. It takes a team, and I've had a great team that has helped put this on. So I just want to thank all of them, and wanted to say that publicly. All right, guys, look forward to seeing you tomorrow. God bless you. Remember to be here early. Thank you so much.